Right now that we're on airplane mode, you're talking about Chevelle, the band Chevelle.
Yeah, technically, the Red. That was their hit. I'm thinking 80s or 90s.
That was their hit song or album.
That was their hit out song kind of, but they were just a cool song. Listen to it. It's just power chord kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were doing with that, with the Schlocks, and then the Grey Days. Is it was just real simple power chord type stuff, and not or the bass licks were simple. Taylor's really talented on guitar, but my stuff was all super duper simple, and initially it wasn't super complex,
So is that still going on? Is that still a thing?
No, not right now. Everyone kind of went different ways musically for right now. So maybe one day, man. Maybe one day everything will congeal and come back together. But at the end there, we had a good little set list, man. We had about 2.5 hours of original music.
And as it's one thing when you're in high school with not a lot of responsibilities, but you have a job now and a wife, and
hard making time for all the stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Extremely. Yeah. I mean, it's when you're teenagers that all can live together and hang out and all day, and then bands are kind of cool. But
yeah, it's definitely something that took time specifically to try to focus on and get better. But that's what it takes in anything, right?
Yep.
Just that repetition.
No, actually, but the band thing is really actually kind of a fascinating topic. Like in America, it's like the average poor kid's dream opportunity to become a rock star from your garage.
Oh yeah,
it's like a cool kind of a folklore thing, and it happens.
Yeah,
and that's the best. That's usually the best way it happened. The best bands kind of usually, and then they go through usually the same cycle. They start off as a bunch of good friends. They get successful. Well, 99% of them, that's it. They just have fun. The few that get successful, it
seems like more now that's accessible to living as a musician through YouTube and stuff like that.
Have you seen the numbers on those?
I haven't actually. No.
Actually, it's pretty interesting. It's kind of like the internet, in the sense that they thought, well, that's going to be a real democracy kind of thing, and it ends up not being so much, and gets polarized. And we're seeing it now with like, join my camp. I'm hearing things I don't want to hear. I don't want to move into another camp kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just dividing more and more, it seems like. And I was seeing some numbers from like Spotify or somewhere, but radio play, 1% of music produced is played 99.99% on the radio.
I've heard that statistic before.
It's just insane.
Well, it's funny because as someone that's done a little bit of research on the process of making those hit songs, there's a certain beats per minute that they use. There's certain notes that they use, and certain frequencies that they project at, and there's formulas for. I mean, there's no surefire way, but then even there's archetypes that they write songs about. There's the lover and the thief and the joker and the rebel and and they all kind of 99% of songs that are successful are like love songs. I think that's another statistic, an overwhelming percentage. I don't know if it's 99% exactly, but in those archetypes, man, it's like almost all songs fall into one of those. I think it's 7 or 8 different archetypes, and it's kind of funny how predictable we are as consumers, just even for spiritual stuff like music. It's easy.
And another thing about music is talent is almost irrelevant.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever seen a Rick Beato? His great music insider kind of producer kind of type. His son has perfect pitch. He's a little kid. He can play 10 notes on a piano, and the kid will tell you every note you played. And it sounds just horrible to your ears.
Yeah.
But he has a real perfect. But the guy, anyways, he has some talent on there that are just phenomenal musicians, beautiful people. It's like, why didn't they make it?
Yeah.
And it's like, music business it's nothing about being fair or good. It's
in
the right place. And there's a lot of, it's a tricky thing.
There's a lot of fuckery involved, man.
And it's a business, and you'll hear that all the time. Musicians are usually
Money does.
Thinking, but it's business. I think Gene Simmons, he's one of the few that
Yeah, man.
understood that one all right.
What's funny is I seen growing up, I was a huge Kiss fan. I think I was Kiss like 3 or 4 different fucking times for Halloween with my buddies. But we went and saw for my bachelor party a few years ago when I got married. We went and me and a buddy of mine, Mitch Schmidt, saw Kiss at the Moda Center up in Portland, and they're all in their like mid to late 70s now. I think Gene Simmons is 75 or older now, and they're still up there doing it. I mean, he's spitting fire and spitting blood, and they all still fit in the spandex and leather. But when you see Paul Stanley's like just a little bit of his pooch just kind of sticking out of his leather jumpsuit, you're like, oh, that kind of makes me sad,
Get over it. It's going to happen.
Oh no, man! But it's cool that they're still doing it because,
yeah.
like you said, they did understand the model. They understand what they needed for long terms.
Yeah, he was totally a business. When I was in junior high, it was first it was Alice Cooper, and then it was Alice Cooper Kiss. Which team were you on? And I was always Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper was the man.
He was the man when I was. Look how cool he's got snakes.
Yeah,
he put on a show,
and his show is not as corny too as Kiss, right? Kiss kind of just came out and did the fire spitting. Alice Cooper was kind of being more theatrical with it.
Very much more theatrical. Yeah. He got to where he got a little nutty with midgets and cutting off heads.
Yeah, the guillotines.
But it was, that was kind of new.
Yeah.
At that point in time.
Yeah, it's not like there's Guar and a million bands where people dress up in all this crazy shit.
But I remember just sitting on my, in junior high, sitting on my friend's bed, and he had that Kiss Alive concert. And on the back, it showed a picture of the auditorium, and I was looking at kids that were just like me.
Yeah.
It was like, those kids are just like me. They were the same age, and
yeah,
and it was,
the hell out of themselves.
You just look at the album and look at it and look at it and look at it.
Well, how old were you when Kiss was kind of hitting their real big stride?
74, 73.
Yeah, mid 70s.
I was in junior high school.
So that's like, had you ever seen anything like that on public media, whether it was the newspaper or magazines?
Well, yeah, back then was
there anything that controversial?
Well, back then they had Midnight Special and like Don Kirshner's rock concert hour.
Okay, yeah.
Friday night, that's what we'd always look forward. And it would be kind of like early MTV in a sense, and they would do a couple sets. But yeah, when Alice Cooper came on, that's kind of. I lived in San Bernardino, which had the Swing Auditorium, which was a main stop for touring. So
okay,
he was going there a lot. Actually, my first concert, I think I could beat anybody's first concert.
Oh, what do you got?
The Brady Kids.
Oh no, yeah.
Jan, Marcia.
Yeah, Bobby.
I swear that they did a little tour. If you remember their show, they kind of got musical for a while.
Kind of like the Partridge Family.
Kind of, because I don't know how they overlap, but
they kind of do that formulaically too sometimes, right? The building sitcoms and stuff like that.
Or even just how in the 60s, have you ever heard of the Wrecking Crew?
I'm not sure.
There's a group of studio musicians in LA, but they're on like 90% of the hit songs.
Okay, yeah. I think there's a lot of
Monkees.
Unrecognized studio musicians that are responsible for doing a lot of the technical playing.
Even like Buffalo, Springfield, and all those bands. Those were, the Mamas and the Papas, all that was all studio musicians. And like the Monkees, that was a studio band. But yeah, there's a group of like 10 just super musicians that pretty much played on everything.
Do you think the Monkees outgrew their mimicry of the Beatles and kind of became a little bit of their own thing there?
I was a huge Monkees fan. I was a little kid. I was in the 60s, and I loved the Monkees. I loved Davy Jones. I remember in kindergarten getting in trouble for pretending I was Davy Jones.
What were you doing?
Standing up,
you dancing around?
Pretending I was shaking a tambourine.
Yeah.
I'm a distinct memory. But the Monkees, they were, I didn't understand that's what it was.
Yeah.
I don't think the Monkees understood that's what. I remember hearing stories.
You don't think that they knew that they were?
Well, I know Peter Tork in the interview saying, like, when they did their first album, he showed up at the studio with a guitar.
Yeah.
And it's like,
they're like, that's not what's going on.
You're not playing guitar here. We hear your voices, but you're not playing guitar on your album, son.
That's funny.
We got that taken care of.
That's got to be hard as a musician to kind of swallow your pride and take direction from these people that are managing you. And
they became pretty famous in their own right.
Davy Jones especially, right?
But even in their circle, they were accepted, I think, in that the LA had a pretty robust music scene in the late 60s, early 70s. A lot. It was pretty robust, and they were part of it. But Yeah. Anyways, what were our topics?
Huh? Oh, well, for
Have we
those of
even-
you that don't know,
Have we started?
this is we're live,
Okay.
and this
Well,
is
we're
what
not
it
live.
is. Well, we're not live, no,
Okay.
but we're in the process of
We're live on
recording
tape.
an episode to be released at a later date. Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. This is Patrick Smith. For those of you that aren't familiar, you can check out his website, greenbicycles.com, where he sells his, I don't want to get this wrong, your your award-winning 2-part full cycle nutrient system.
I like.
And
Where'd you
that's
get that?
Happy Endings tea mix and Ocean Bounties flour mix, right?
Yeah, that's my new kind of. Where'd you get that? You did. a
I
little
did some research.
You did a little-
Yeah,
you did a
I'm
little-
prepared.
you
I did
did
my
some-
homework.
I don't do that. Good job.
Yeah, see, I've grown since the last time we were in each other's presence.
Actually, you've matured quite a bit.
Yeah.
You're
Thank
always a good kid. You were never like a bad kid. I remember.
No,
But you're a kid.
I think I was your TA at one point. I was even helping.
You could have been, but you're it's funny. I taught a lot of kids, thousands of kids,
Oh yeah.
and some you remember and some you don't. In fact, people will say, "Oh, I was in your class," and it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, man. Well, that's
Were you?
hard. I mean,
Were
how
you?
many? Like you said, thousands. You're expected to remember thousands of kids who you saw for
You should.
maybe an hour a day when they showed up.
Well, you should. You spend a lot
Yeah.
of time with them, but you're one that I wouldn't have. For character.
I had a lot of fun, man. I always thought that you were a really good teacher, and you always made class really interesting.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I think that was the kind of the common consensus. It was funny because I remember, if we could speak freely, I remember there's a few times where there's kids and they would lip up to you and you'd be like, "Hey, shut the hell up." And I remember hearing rumors that, oh, Mr. Smith got in trouble because he told so-and-so. And we all knew that so-and-so was a shithead. And that's exactly what he needed to be told, was to shut the hell up. And I remember hearing that. I was like, good, fuck that kid. That kid's a pain in the ass to everyone that he meets. And guess what? There's a point in time where, you start taking away. I don't know. I remember you as a very real person, even as a teacher. You never tried to pander to us, and you never tried to belittle us when we needed correcting either.
Oh, well,
That was something positive I really remembered.
well, good. That's very complimentary. I do remember a specific instance. Yeah, I was. I'll be honest. I wasn't had the greatest temperament to be a teacher. I can be real honest with you on
Yeah.
that one. But I definitely remember being in the principal's office with a child and his parent, and the principal asked me, "Did you call little Johnny an asshole?" And I said, "Yeah, but he called me one first."
Well, I mean,
It's like I didn't win,
man,
but yeah.
there's a point where it's like, yeah, someone's got to tell that kid something, man.
But I remember he said, "You're an asshole." I said, "No, you're an asshole." And his parents came and got me in trouble.
Oh wow.
But anyways, that's no, it was, well, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I enjoyed working with kids. I wasn't real good with administration. I think it has deep-seated issues with my authority problems.
Yeah, that's fair.
I have issues, it turns out, thinking I do. Because because once I was done teaching, I started in the business world. I think maybe that's one of the reasons I'm here today is
What year did you stop teaching?
2010.
2010, and that was my senior year of high school. And that was that shortly after you had some controversy with the school too? Was there? I had heard there was rumors at the time that because you had won the Cannabis Cup,
Yeah.
right, in 2010, that you got some bad press with the school board or something to that effect, or pressures. Any truth to that?
Can I give you my side of the story?
Of course.
No,
That's why we're here.
Yeah, 2000. Secret or no secret, I was a medical cannabis grower.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was my passion kind of deal. I ended up getting pretty good at it. So I entered the 2010 Highkimes Cannabis Cup, Medical Cup in San Francisco, 2010. It happened on the last day of school.
Okay.
So the day of the contest was the last day of school. So I think I actually took that day off to drive to San
Yeah.
Francisco. And then when they announced the winner, I had no idea. It was kind of a fluke, to be honest with you. I knew it wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing. I said, if I stand up and take this award, I probably will never teach again. And I made that decision. I said, okay. So then I won the award, and I got home and I talked with some close teacher friends of mine. I said, I'm conflicted. I didn't really do anything illegal, but I can understand this could be a real issue. And so I said, I'm going to take a sabbatical for a year. and see what. So that summer, right away I applied for a sabbatical and said I need to, for whatever reason, I want to take a year off, and just to see how it would play out.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to lose my teaching credential necessarily. So, anyways, meantime, in that year I had my sabbatical. I think it was real early in the fall. YouTube, thank you for YouTube.
Yeah.
That got viral. I guess they played in the classrooms.
The clip.
They played a little clip of me accepting the award, and then I got a letter from the superintendent saying we have a problem. And I just said, I understand we have a problem. I said, I have no problem resigning, but I'd like to keep my teaching credential because it's kind of a black eye if they revoke your teaching credential, because I really didn't break any law.
Is that ground? Yeah. What do the grounds have to be?
Who knows? But I didn't want
teaching credential.
I didn't want to fight that.
Push it. Yeah.
I didn't want to say, no, you have to keep me working. I'm going to use the union. And I could have, but it would have been just not good for anybody.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that went. So it wasn't real negative, but like I said, I was never real. I was never the administration was never a fan of me.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way from the get go.
Which is funny because you'd think the opinion that would matter more above anybody is the students, and I don't think I had maybe that one kid that you called little Johnny.
No, there were a few issues.
Yeah.
But not everybody thought Mr. Smith was kind of cool. Trust me, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, being a teacher, I imagine.
And
so.
And I got in it late in my life. Actually, when I was 40, I think I started teaching. So
was that at Grant High School?
First high school I taught was Oroville High School. Then I taught at Grant High School, and then I moved up here. I love Crescent City too. Real different up here, but yeah, that's my story so far. How we doing this?
No, you're fine.
Well, I know I'm fine, but how we doing?
We're doing great. Okay. Everything, all the mics are picking up. The shot looks great. Everything's going good. What kind of differences did you notice up here that drove you to this area initially? As a young, at 40 years old, you've achieved your teaching credential, right? You're looking for employment at maybe a new area. You're moving to these different high schools. What was it that ended you up here? Now you run your business, Green Cycles Farms out of here. Is it farms? Is it?
Oh, it's just a LLC company.
Green Bicycles LLC.
Yeah, just a nutrient company. That's an interesting question. I don't know exactly. I had somewhere in the back of my mind, for some reason, I romanticized Crescent City, and I've never been here. But for some reason, I don't know, it had something to do with, I heard my father was up here when he was younger. I don't know what it was, but I always, in my back, it was kind of like a romantic thing. I want to move to Crescent City. And then once I started teaching's kind of an interesting profession in the sense that most towns need teachers.
Yeah.
So it allows you to be mobile, real mobile, actually.
A lot of travel.
It's like if I did a certain profession, it's not always in every city necessarily. So teaching's kind of nice for that. So I just applied for jobs up here, and I got one at the high school. And I moved from Sacramento up here, Chico area, Sacramento.
Prior to teaching, what were you doing? But let's go back a little further. Well, tell me about your college years. Where'd you go to college at?
Went to I started at Butte College.
Okay.
At Butte College, and I went to Chico High School. Graduated in '79. Went to Butte College for a year or two. Transferred to San Diego State. I was going to be an ROTC in the Air Force. Actually went to the boot camp and everything, but again, the authority thing.
Yeah, kind of picked
wasn't
up.
A real good fit.
Yeah.
It was like, come on. I'm not good. I'm not. It's just.
Buddy, trust me, I've had my issues as well. Yeah.
It's not always positive, but it is what it is, right? I changed majors. I think I was a PE major for a while.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm not athletic at all, so it was kind of weird.
I remember you were always popping wheelies on the bicycle, man. You're riding the bicycle around all the time.
I ride the bicycle.
Yeah.
Obviously. But ended up majoring in physics.
I was gonna say, I remember you and I having a conversation that at one point you were working on some laser development or laser technology development.
Yeah, it was. I think I was just taking a general physics class in college. Professors come around, they're trying to get people into their little specialty programs. And at that time, it was during the Star Wars era with Reagan.
Okay.
And there was a lot of money going into defense, and and stuff like laser. So they had a specialty called modern optics and lasers. It was like a subgroup of physics, and the teacher came in and said, "Hey, every graduate is getting 11 job offers."
Oh shit.
So it was like,
Yeah.
sign me up.
Perfect.
It's out of my league, but sign me up. So anyways, I got through that program, and yeah, and actually it was a good time, and I went to work for a laser company in Auburn, California, but they're based in Palo Alto.
Okay.
So I actually started coating mirrors with in vacuum chambers, and made sunglasses and in specialty mirrors and laser mirrors, and
Okay.
did that for a couple while. Then I turned into a field engineer, where actually it was a very cool job. I used to set up lasers and train people how to use lasers all over, even
For
in
what kind of
Europe,
purposes?
anywhere from rock concerts
Okay.
to a lot of research, national labs. I had a really unique position. I used to go to, like Lawrence Livermore or AT&T Bell, Harvard or MIT and Caltech. So I had a unique thing where I got to talk with a lot of geniuses,
Yeah.
and where I interacted with them. So it was very cool. And
Because at this time you're how old during this process working for this laser company?
I want to say mid 20s, late 20s.
So are you doing a lot of networking with these people? Are you staying in touch with them? Or are you meeting them and just taking overall? What were you getting out of it
What do you mean?
at that time? Were you having experiences that you took something from and carried that through life? Did that help you? You think meeting these people at that time in your life when you're still pretty influential? I mean, in your 20s.
As far
These
as
geniuses and all these people that you're coming in contact with that are super high intellect. I mean,
no, it was interesting group of people, actually, and
Yeah.
and that was cool. Probably no, and actually, what that really sparked me to do is once I started work, because I worked mostly with like graduate students, almost always at Berkeley or wherever, a lot of universities I traveled to, and and I just it appealed to me what they were doing. So so I wanted to go to grad school, even though I'll be real honest with you,
yeah.
I had horrible grades in school. I was
Mr.
not.
Smith,
I was
come
not-
on, man.
Really, I did. I wasn't like this kid that could go to graduate school that I would never get accepted,
Yeah,
because that it's not easy, especially chemistry or physics, something like that. You got to know what's up. I'll be honest, I really didn't, but I would go to all these, like I would go to, it was cool, Caltech, and these geniuses would be needing my help,
yeah,
and I was training these guys, and they were like they were kind of wowed by what I could do with lasers, because
Yeah.
it seemed so mysterious to them. But with a little training,
was that pretty brand new, cutting edge, emerging technology type stuff
Well,
back then?
what I kind of end up okay, going off on a little tangent here,
No, you're fine, buddy.
but to measure an event, you need an event that's faster.
Yeah,
Like, for example, if you wanted to take a picture of me with a shutter on a camera, that shutter would have to open and close faster than if I was walking across the room. Otherwise, it would miss me, right? So,
yeah,
long story short, chemists and physical chemists and specifically like to look at super things that like molecular changes that happen really, really fast.
okay,
So you need an instrument that's faster. So I was a specialist in what they call ultra fast technology, where we can make really short pulses of laser light, where they can actually it's an event faster than, say, an electron going around an atom. So they could actually
Yeah.
look at that now because they have something that's faster.
that's crazy.
So
Hard to even fathom
it is
that premise.
it's held to fathom, because this is how fast we could turn on and off. So basically, we'd make a light pulse,
Yeah,
turn on and off, 1,000,000 billion times a second, plus like divide it. So say you take a second, divide it by 1,000,000, take one of those little pieces and divide it by 1,000,000,000, and take one of those and divide it by like 15,000.
that's how fast the light's pulsing.
It's
Yeah,
insane.
and they use it as a unit of measurement, or
Yeah, and what's interesting is when if you take that to a further step, say, well, how do you measure that?
yeah,
Because that's that would be the fastest event
Yeah.
known.
yeah,
How do you measure the fast, so you know how fast it's going?
yeah,
And what you have to do is you look at relatives of it. What's real interesting is, like, there's way off on topics, but
No, this is
everything
fine.
has a bunch of frequencies to it, right? And they have like guitar, they have overtones,
Yeah.
right? So you can't actually look at, say, when you plug a 220, let's say a 440, right? That's a C, I think. So there's also 880 going on and 1660. So it's basically the same thing. When you have a super fast pulse like that, you look for one of the overtones. When you see the overtone, you know the other one's got to be there, kind of
Okay.
deal. Yeah, you look at it indirectly, but that's what was my specialty. So, and it wasn't real easy to. It was kind of it's real precise kind of stuff.
Yeah, I imagine.
But that's so yeah. So anyways, I realized I can work with these guys. I have a skill that's important to them. So actually, at UCLA, because everywhere I'd go to these schools, I said, man, you need some graduate students, and of course, the professor would love someone like me to be in their laboratory.
Yeah.
Because I'm there, because I have some skills and I can save them a lot of time and I know the processes, et cetera, et cetera.
Get around that learning curve.
Yeah, so I could be very helpful in laboratories. So a professor at UCLA accepted me. He says, yeah, I would love for you to work for it. But again, graduate students are slaves. That's a whole nother story. Yeah. It's a horrible
at
kind
least
of
indentured servants, right?
They're indentured servants. So and that's where I first taught, was at UCLA in a lab class, chemistry. I loved it. That's when I said, man, this is fun. I really enjoy this.
Is that kind of what guided your career path towards getting your teaching credential and pursuing that as a means of income?
And kind of realizing that, like I said, the teacher allows you to be pretty mobile. Not everything does. Like when I was a laser guy, it's like, I can live in Palo Alto or I can live in LA. But
was that something that you were doing a lot? Were you picking up and moving quite a bit teaching?
No, I taught in 3 high schools.
Just kind of nice to know you have that ability if you wish.
Yeah, in my mind, I think I applied for Del Norte County right out of teacher school. So I applied here for that's kind of where I wanted to end up, and it turns out I did.
A lot of people stay though, so it probably took a while for you to end up getting in. Or it being a math teacher, they're usually in demand. Yeah,
it's so.
Oh, yeah.
But especially if you're a PE teacher, it's probably not as mobile, or math teachers, English teachers. The core classes are a little more in demand.
Yeah.
With that, we don't want to go into education, do we?
Yeah. No, we don't have to. I did want to ask you though, as you moved away from teaching and you decided to kind of start to pursue careers outside of that field, what were your first thoughts when you were coming to these realizations? Like, look, if I claim these honors for this thing that I've done, winning this cup, and if I come out publicly and I accept this and I take the good things that come with that, I'm going to have these repercussions. When did you start kind of realizing that you were going to have to, or that you were going to move into a new field, that a shift was going to happen in your life, and what you were going to use to supply yourself with income? And
I actually had a couple tough years. That wasn't easy. It was scary. It's always scary for change like that, especially when you don't know. And honestly, what was I? 50 years old. And it turns out the marketplace is not for 50-year-old people.
Yeah.
I couldn't even get, honestly, it was hard for me to get a job, a minimum wage job, pretty much anywhere. It was just kind of difficult. But I went through about a 2-year period where I worked at a grocery store. I worked for the Clean Green program. So I kind of meandered a little bit, and then wild hair up my butt, and I said, I should be able to once I worked in a grocery store, I kind of saw what a racket it was. So I said, I think I could do better. So at Parkway Feed, I rented one of the buildings from Dewey.
Yeah.
I got my first month's rent with 6 clones. I actually started the business with 0 money.
Yeah.
Literally gave them a half a dozen clones for half a month's rent. So
the barter 101, right?
Bartered 101. I went out into a scrapyard and built all the tables and my countertops, and everything was free with barrels. And
then from there, I mean, it's really grown into quite the operation, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and it's real interesting. Life
from humble beginnings.
Life is a journey, and it's hard to plan, and it's like I see as stepping stones, and it's hard to it's hard to say where you'll be in 10 stepping stones, but just kind of got to keep moving forward. I ended up really hating retail. It was because I was doing it with no money, so I really couldn't afford to hire anybody. And so when you have a business and you have business hours, which you kind of have to do, right?
Yeah, 9 to 5.
You have to be there. You know, you can't have a business that says we're open from 9 to 5 and someone pulls up at 10:30 and you're not there.
Yeah.
That doesn't last very long. So I ended up being there 6 days a week. I hated it because most of the time I did nothing. But I did develop some products. You know, I developed a couple of a line of organic natural fertilizers that people were giving me feedback saying, "Hey, this is working really well." So I honestly, I thought I was just wasting my time sitting at the store all day with maybe a couple of sales.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, you know, I have a good product. It seems to work. I would like to sell it on other people's stores, you know, multiply the sales.
Of course.
So I said, okay, what do you do? And I was new to business, but it was interesting. I like to learn things. I tend to get bored, but I love new things. So I had to learn a lot. I had to learn about retail and taxes, insurance, and a lot of stuff. Business licensing and getting labels.
Was that a steep learning curve, or was that kind of just stuff you had to do the legwork on and just kind of get it out of the way?
It's interesting because it's like if you go to a class or a school for business or something and you're getting assignments and you're probably not real sure what it means or what it's for. So when you're doing it like what I did, everything had meaning. It had context to it.
Direct translation.
It's like I need to know. Okay, here's what I need to do in order to go to the next step. So yeah, it was, you know, it's a bumpy road, but but it's all doable. You know, it's all very doable.
Do you think that deters a lot of people from kind of going for it and opening their own business?
It can, because there are a lot of little pieces to it. Yeah.
To you, is it obvious that the means aren't worth the ends? Because I mean, you went for it, you did it, you're through, you're on the other side, you have all those licensures out of the way. It seems like people use that as an excuse almost not to go for it. Like, oh, I wouldn't know how to get the businesses and stuff. I'm really good at XYZ, but I don't know how to monetize it. And the business licensure program, it seems overwhelming and cumbersome.
It's, you know, what's really sucks is what I really, and I'm not even that much of an expert, they make it really hard to hire people.
Yeah.
Legally. You know, so what happens now is you get a lot of that, the 1098 forms or something where people, you subcontract work to people. So they're not on your payroll because it's really expensive to hire somebody, which is a shame because my goal is to be able to have a payroll for other people. I'm not quite there yet. The possibility, you know, it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
But
next step.
That's kind of the frustrating part. It's just so expensive just to say, hey, I'd like to pay somebody $15 an hour to come and work for me. It's way, you know, it's way more than that if I want to do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because at a certain point too, and then depending on the hours you're having them work and things like that, you're gonna have to. I mean,
yeah, when it's independent, that's the deal. When you hire with a 1099, I think it's called, you can't tell them their hours.
Yeah.
So it's like it's real hard to run a business with hours when you're technically not allowed to tell them when they can work. It's strange, but no, to me, I love the journey. I'm still going on it. I'm still trying to figure things out, and I was very fortunate. I made it. You know, I ended up maxing out a few credit cards. I'm pretty tight. You know, and I was. The business was profitable every year.
Yeah. So
that's something I was very lucky with because things are easier when you're getting by.
Yeah.
You know, so and most businesses aren't profitable for a while.
Yeah, what did they say? First 2 years, 3 years, right?
At least, and so I didn't have that, so I kind of had to make it work, and they were close. There were some months where the mortgage payment was like the last day, where the day before I didn't have it. So it was, you know, looking back, but those are, you know, sometimes you look back at those times as not bad because sometimes tough times
make you grow.
Yeah, they're not, you know, when you look back at them, it's like good, you know, it's like, man, I did that. I accomplished something. So.
And you really appreciate it now. I mean, on the other side, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm
having gone through.
I almost wish I would, you know, your life is a journey, kind of. I almost wish I'd done it earlier in my life, being in business, because I just like it. But again, I don't regret too much.
At this point in your career where you're kind of your own boss, right?
Oh yeah, thank goodness.
Is this something that you've maybe unconsciously worked towards
Could have been.
or subconsciously worked towards?
Are we allowed to do cuss words here?
Oh yeah, fuck yes. Of course.
Oh, okay, fuck
Yeah.
it. I want to get a shirt that says self-employed on one side and the other side says my boss is an asshole.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. That'd be a good shirt. That's hilarious.
Because that's gonna I have problems with authority, but now it's me.
Yeah, now you're the man. You
No,
take another role.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how satisfying that is.
Well, that's a common thread of everyone that I've had on so far. Is self-employed and they're self-realizers and they're people that have ambitions and they brought their dreams to fruition. And it seems like when it's no pun intended, when it's organic, and it seems like people are actually putting in the hard work and the elbow grease, and they're willing to put in the hours and do the research and make everything as full of effort and passion as they're able to, that they eventually with consistency get success. And it seems like that passion plus consistency method is, I mean, that's kind of the formula right there, right?
And again, a lot of things, like I say, the journey a lot, that's what you embrace. Because I don't know in a month what's going to happen. I don't know what the next stepping stone. There's more available now.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are for sure, but I know there's more. But no, it's kind of like, that's what it's like, oh, I can't wait till I get there. I want to be a millionaire, and then I'm gonna, like, I'll see a lot of teachers, they work, oh, I'm gonna retire when I'm 60 and
Yeah.
life's gonna be good, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
In fact, what you see a lot is when people retire, they lose their sense of meaning. And
Well, that's I've heard a lot of talks on that. Yeah, meaning and purpose, and it's like, yeah, or there's that old adage, what are you gonna do when you retire? Well, I'm gonna sit on a beach and drink Mai Tais. It's like, yeah, for like what, for a week, and then you're gonna be sunburnt and miserable and hungover, and that's what you're gonna do for the next, until you die, until you're done.
no, and there's a weird thing about, we tie our identity to a lot what we do.
Yeah.
Society, I remember that too. It kind of bothered me. It's like when I was working with lasers, it was like, that's my family, where he's my cousin, he's
Yeah.
a laser guy or
He's a
whatever.
laser, yeah.
And it's like, that's really not me. But anyways, we
It's
tend to do
interesting
that.
how we do that, huh?
And we definitely do that. And I think, and I think there is in some intrinsic benefit or joy to struggle a little bit. Honestly, it's kind of a yin and yang. If everything was good, you wouldn't appreciate it, because you wouldn't know what bad it was. It's like a Disney movie. There's always a villain.
Yeah, if you're not cold, you can't be warm. That kind of thing.
Yeah. There's something going on with that, I'm pretty sure. But luck and timing. Not when they say hard work, you'll get successful. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Seen smart hard workers. But again, if they're just enjoying that journey and being a hard worker, I'm a hard worker. I like it.
Yeah.
And then that's okay.
I think that's the part of it. I think that's what separates, right? The just hard work from actual passionate pursuit is if you're enjoying it. That's the key thing. Because if you can work hard as hell on something you hate, and you might not end up getting any product from it, whether that's self-fulfillment or monetary gain or whatever it is that you're looking from that pursuit. But it seems like when that true passion's there, people do garner at least momentum, if nothing else. And then if they act upon that or not, that's their call. But it seems like you've really acted upon it, man. Yeah, I mean, you've put out, you've moved into the social media world. You're creating a podcast that you run now, right? Green Bicycles Podcast, and that's GREAN. And you're on YouTube, right? People can check you out and come check out your podcast. You've got to the point now where when I watch your podcast, you have all these regulars that tune in to watch you live. That's pretty cool. As someone that records their podcast freehand, the idea of somebody frequently tuning in to interact with you and your podcast and ask you questions and pick your brain and kind of reciprocate that availability to be there to watch you as you are being consistent and being there for them to watch. You're reciprocating that consistency, and it seems like that's something that people are beginning to appreciate about you, and you're kind of building a little following, and you're you're gaining more steam on the social media and you're mastering it and you're using it to promote things. And I know you didn't like your little funny videos that you were making, but I thought those were great. I thought that was genius marketing.
Well,
I thought that was perfect.
I'll have to do that again. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And you know what the social COVID had a lot to do with this, and I have some theories about it. It's like
With the podcasting?
yeah, with
Specifically?
podcasting
Okay.
specifically, no, it's I enjoy it, and it is kind of cool when you see people that come on your show. I don't know who they are. I've never met them.
Yeah.
But they're regulars, and they'll come on the screen, and some are from Canada or all over, Midwest, back east, and you kind of get this camaraderie with them, and you kind of get a bond. It's really kind of weird, but I think like Cheers.
Yeah.
There's a thing where in it that people like to get together and socialize and tell stories, and a lot of people on a lot of these podcasts, people are drinking,
Yeah.
they're smoking weed, they're just kind of, and that's missing now. And there's an avenue for that. It's a little different. You're not sitting in next to a bar and a guy and telling your stories, but that's kind of what goes on these shows.
Yeah, I think
It's just so there's a need for people to just bullshit with each other. It could get political, it could get argumentative, but if you go to a bar, it's the same thing. It's the same kind of scene as, and a lot of people in bars are strangers. It's just you're going to go in and bullshit, tell your story or sad story or happy story or whatever. But
it's funny because it seems like people are interested, even if it's something that they don't necessarily appreciate. Even if you're listening in to two people and neither one of them is someone that you can identify with, it seems like there's still people that will tune in, even though they hate what both people are saying, just to be like, and people do that at the bar too, right? They butt into your conversation and purposefully hear things they don't want to just to feel something, right? It seems like people are kind of missing that just genuine conversation that you would get at these places where now we're covering our mouth and we're not looking at each other and it's awkward and it's weird and you're trying to squeeze down the aisle and you don't know how sensitive this person's going to be if you get 4 feet next to him instead of 6 feet. And there's kind of this weird timidity now, and I think it eases people to hear organic conversations between people that are generally, I would say, non-hostile, but sometimes even they seek out hostile ones just for,
yeah, the one difference is that people will say things on the internet that they would never in a million years say to you.
Oh, yeah.
If you were in the same room like this. That's kind of the bad. I've been very, very fortunate because I played around, what you're talking about. The good news is people have a lot of options now for these live podcasts.
Yeah.
I mean, they're ubiquitous, big SAT word.
Oh, yeah, that's a $5 word.
That's a $5 word, at least $4.50.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I heard a statistic like 1 out of 200 people have a podcast now.
Yeah.
It's insane,
I would believe it.
but there are a lot of different niches for it, and I've seen some real troll channels where they're brutal. They're like Jerry Springer on steroids, and they get fascinating, but they're very vicious. Sometimes there's some vicious trolls out there that
Some of the prank stuff that I see, and it borderlines, man. It's like,
No,
is it really a prank or is it like?
no, they call police on people and turn them into to parent, what is it, CPS or protective services.
Yeah.
I mean, they call people's work and get them fired, and just honestly just go cross the line. But there's a sick part of me that like I tuned in for a while,
Yeah.
and I felt really guilty about it, and I don't anymore.
Oh yeah, you can't take personal responsibility for what these people are doing.
No, but it's like it's that part of us that wants to go to a fight or go to a car, turn our head at a car crash and slow down, and
Yeah.
it's a human, and
It's a curiosity
It
thing,
is, but
right?
I'm not. It's something I don't know we should be proud of because there's definitely pain going on,
Yeah.
and I don't know, but that's
Maybe-
out there.
maybe
But there's a
not.
lot of good things too. Mine is very positive. In fact, I was bragging to somebody. It's like I have 100% likes on almost every show.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no one's ever just It's
Until
like now it's going to change.
Someone's gonna see you hanging out with me, and they're gonna go give you
I
thumbs
know.
down. I'm
As soon
sorry.
as I say that, that's what's going to happen. They're going to say, "I'm going to go show him," but oh well, I'll get over it. I promise you.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'm looking for some dislikes here. But,
I think it's important though, right? I think it's important to have comments coming at you too, and if they're constructive, right? If they're saying, "Hey, oh, your lighting's bad" or something like that. I mean, people are going to have negative things to say, and people could think of a negative thing to say about winning the lottery. It seems like nowadays, but
it can be brutal, and you gotta have a thick skin. I need a thicker skin for sure. I would, but one thing about like podcasting or the internet, when you're seeing the live feedback, it's like it's instant. Like that didn't go over well.
yeah,
I won't do that again.
you say something that
Yeah.
10 people leave, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
it's
it
like
hard.
that doesn't work. Okay.
Well, it's hard too because people, I think, everyone has things that they hold near and dear. You know what I mean? It's so easy to have someone's opinion or someone's identity wrapped up in something that you say, and you're trying to make an honest joke, and then people take it to heart, and it's hard for people, I think, to separate themselves from their perception of themselves. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's with the Fight Club monologue. It's like, you're not the car you drive, you're not your job, you're not your bank account. It's like sometimes you have to take a step outside of yourself and realize, like, listen, this is just another person that's expressing themselves. They're having a good time. You know what I mean? They're not trying to be intentionally hurtful. And you have to read into people's intentions, I think, sometimes. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that. They just try to say things at face value, or they want to take things at face value, and well, oh no, he said it. It's like, oh well, God forbid, we never heard of sarcasm before, and we never will. And it seems like people are ready to do that very often nowadays. And I think it's important for us to not take ourselves too seriously, or to not
No,
take others too seriously for the things that they say.
absolutely, and those are real easy to do. Is take yourself too seriously, and also take what other people say too seriously. And I'm guessing you would agree with me. We are in a weird. It's funny how like the internet supposedly opened up everything, but in some ways it's closed. Like I said, it's like you say something bad about X politician, I'm not listening to you no more.
Yeah.
Cancel culture, where if I'm in a dangerous territory. I grew up in the 70s.
Yeah.
Brother, it was a different world in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
The TV, everything was I guess it would be considered unwatchable now. Some of the shows I watched, Fred Sanford and Sons of,
Yeah.
they probably would not be allowed to.
Archie Bunker.
Yes, some
Yeah.
of those were in,
George Jefferson.
and they're going back to those times and getting people for saying things 30, 40 years ago, which I'm aging myself, and of course that but it's there's some, we got to get over what people say.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
Sticks and stones, right?
and plus people make mistakes, and there should be a path to redemption.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the other thing too.
Otherwise,
It's like, at
what's
what
the
point?
point?
Yeah, exactly. At what point do you stop rubbing the dog's nose and shit, and then wait for him to not do it again, and his punishment's ended? It's like, okay, well, I think one of them was one of the late night Jimmys. I don't know if it was Fallon or if it was Kimmel, but one of them got accused of doing blackface in like the early 90s or something like that. But it was part of like a show that he was on. It was part of his, job or something to that effect, I believe. And but it's like, yeah, okay, now you're a bad dog. You did the bad thing. Now we're gonna rub your nose in it. It's like, we're gonna keep it there for a little while, and a little bit longer, and a little bit longer. And it seems like our media revels more and more in keeping the nose in the shit instead of giving the person the opportunity to not shit the next time, and focusing on that.
No, and media topic. I think we've been getting the short end of the stick for long, and that's why these kinds of things I have hope for. Like I call it the new media, YouTube, and hopefully there'll be other branches of it, because some of the big tech tends to they're too powerful. And,
A lot of them are very powerful.
For example, I saw on Amazon, and it's a pretty, it's grown into a pretty big piece of my puzzle now. It's allowed me to sell all over. Where basically I used to sell in Humboldt County.
Yeah.
99% of my sales were in Humboldt County. Now I sell almost in every state.
That's awesome.
It's very awesome, but Amazon is so powerful. All they have to do is say, can't sell anymore. And it's like, oops. Because like selling through your web, people don't do that anymore. They don't go
to your own website.
They don't go to a website and give a credit card number. That just doesn't happen anymore. They go to Amazon.
Well, what's funny too is that I was reading this article, and it was saying that Amazon's kind of gotten into some, not some hot water necessarily. I mean, obviously they have more than enough money to bail themselves out of any hot water they might ever end up in. But there was an inventor who made a certain good, and it was like a camera tripod or something to that effect. And then Amazon, a year later, after they'd released it, released their own camera tripod with the exact same specifications, but then they discontinued selling. You know, it's like if I had the Happy Endings or the Ocean Bounty, your tea mix and your flour mix, and you sold it on Amazon for a year and everything's hunky dory. Hey, look, we're having a symbiotic relationship. We're helping each other. We're partners. And then I go, actually, you can't sell anymore. And actually, I figured out how to make that product you were selling, and that's going to be my product now. Sorry about that.
No.
But they have R&D for that.
No, they do
And
that.
they poacher essentially, right? I mean,
Costco does something similar too with their Kirkland brand, but
yeah,
but no, Amazon is brutal. Here, I mean, just I'll tell you an Amazon story. First of all, there's no phone number as a seller, and Amazon makes their money from sellers pretty much, right? And I pay a fee every month, like $50 or whatever, for the privilege of selling on Amazon.
It's like your license fee.
Yeah, just a monthly fee that it costs a seller. They take a cut, which is fine because they do provide a service. They provide a big service. They provide is the money collection.
Yeah.
You know, that because honestly, when you have a website that accepts credit cards, it's getting hacked constantly and getting shut down.
Yeah.
It's unless you have every major every week you're having an update. You better have a web guy on it. Like otherwise your website gets taken down. So Amazon provides that, which is a good service. They accept, they take the money, process it. They give you good deals on shipping, and they earn that cut. 20% or 15%, something like that off every sale. So recently, I sell quite a bit on Amazon, and it's growing every year. But recently, somebody ordered something, a 25-pound box of Ocean Bounty. I think they paid $80. Right? I'll give you the numbers. Then they had to pay tax. It was like $87.50. My cut was $64. But I have to pay for. I do all my own shipping because I like that control. Because I write every order gets a handwritten note from me,
Nice.
which I think is a little bit, kind of. And I tell them if they need to get a hold of me or whatever. And my phone rings all the time because of that. But anyways, I like to do throw in a T-shirt once in a while, throw in stickers. So I like to do my own shipping.
What other company does that? I can't even buy $100,000 Tesla and then call Elon Musk. You know what I mean?
I know.
Let alone I'm buying.
Thank you. You appreciate that.
No, I do appreciate.
No, and I think that's one of the reasons I think I'm doing okay. But so those are the numbers, and once I get that, I buy the shipping from Amazon because I get a bit. So basically, it costs me about $20 to ship 25 pounds flat rate anywhere in the United States.
Okay.
So we can do the math on that. But anyways, an hour after the guy put the order in and clicked I accept, right? And I got the order.
Yeah.
Amazon emails me. He decided he didn't want it. So he and that's his option. He went to Amazon and said, listen, I think I'm paying too much for this. He gave a bunch of reasons. He goes, I want to cancel my order. And I really try to provide good customer service. So I get an email from Amazon saying, this guy wants to cancel his order. You want to do, you have a choice. You can say yes, no, or whatever, right?
Oh.
So I hadn't shipped it yet, but I paid for the shipping because I printed out the shipping label. So he at least he canceled before I shipped it, which I try to ship really fast, like usually the same day.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, let's give him a refund. So how much is the refund? It's $87.50. Well, at $87.50 comes out my Amazon did their job. They're saying it's up to you if you want to give them a refund, but we're keeping our cut.
Yeah.
We're keeping the taxes we collected. And we're keeping
losing money,
and we're keeping the money that you paid for the shipping label that you can't use for anyone else because it's addressed to this guy. So that little click costed me over $40.
Yeah.
Just him deciding not to buy it. I shouldn't say this because someone's going to say
no, but I mean that's the reality of the business.
But a bot could do that if you think about it. You could set up a bot to go and order again. But what that's going to force me to do. It's going to force me to do two things. First, I'm not going to print out a shipping label for at least 24 hours now.
Yeah, good call.
And I might just start saying no refund because I had that. I made that choice to
give you a chance to establish a policy that's going to be consistent about.
But I want to make people. I want to be good. And I was going to say when I was working at that laser company, awesome company out of Palo Alto, and what they taught me was about customer service.
What's the company's name?
It was called Coherent Lasers. There was two
Coherent.
majors, Spectre Physics and Coherent were the two major scientific laser companies in the world, and both based out of Palo Alto. And they had subsidiaries in different places in Europe, but they really stretched because people were paying big money for these scientific lasers. You know, this is when money was flowing, like I said, in the Star Wars days.
Yeah.
But they taught me the sense of how important customer service is. So I'm trying to do that, to make everyone happy. You can't always do it, and there are thieves out there.
Yeah.
And that one kind of got in my craw this week. It was like, because then I wanted to
that
call
was just
Amazon.
this week?
Yeah, and
Okay.
just a couple of days ago, and I wanted to call Amazon and say, this doesn't seem right. You collected the taxes, I didn't. Now I got to pay them back.
Yeah.
And
It's just non-negotiable for them.
there's no, you can't even talk to. There's no way even to ask a question.
Yeah.
It's horrible, and it's not like resources to have a call center. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think? I mean, that's obviously at that level. If I were to sit here and assume that they hadn't thought of every kind of safeguard and scenario that they could be operating within, that has to be a conscious decision on their part not to engage in that way, not to have a direct call center for sellers. That's got to be a conscious decision.
It is, because they're, and not only that, in the last year, those guys have and it's like I said, for me, it's a double-edged sword for sure. It's allowed me to sell all the United States, and in a sense, that's marketing.
Yeah.
Now now there's a bunch of people in Maine who know the name Green Bicycles, which is what marketing's all about. Is just getting name recognition. That's why I do this.
Branding.
Green Bicycles.
Yeah. GREAN.
GREAN.com. But so yeah, I don't
And
know.
on YouTube.
And on YouTube. Yeah, no, social media, I did embrace that. I try to do, one thing I heard about business is do at least 2 marketing approaches a year different, and I have. One of the things, I don't know if you remember, I did the Jefferson Cup, which I thought was freaking awesome.
And you did the Humboldt Cup too, right?
Well, I promoted the Jefferson Cup.
Okay,
that was my event at the Del Carnegie Fair.
I'm not. I didn't realize that was you were the main driving force behind it. I knew you were involved.
That was another learning curve. I had to deal with the city and the
Were they happy to have you?
No, no. There's some families in Delaware County that didn't like the idea of having a pod show at the fairgrounds, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
But we got it through, and it went smooth. It was a really cool show. It's actually a really cool show. I pulled off a few things that no one else has ever pulled off, but
such as,
I don't know if I could even say them.
Yeah. Of course you can. You can say whatever you want.
I don't think the statutes of limitations.
Oh, okay. They still haven't worn off yet. All right. Well, then we can wait. But that's
well, it has to do with you know what State Line, right? Actually, my buddy owns State Line.
Okay.
It's Bud Mark up here. But do you ever see the traffic like when they pull out of that driveway, where they go?
Where they go?
Yeah, when they leave
back onto the highway.
To which direction?
Usually, back to Cali.
See, technically, that's not legal.
Oh, it's not.
You're not supposed to ever cross state lines with cannabis.
Really?
Yeah.
Even from one state where it's legal to another.
No.
Oh, okay. Is that a big problem that they don't like, or is that something that you've heard?
It's a federal law.
Controversial.
But of course, the
politically,
people at the bug station can watch people leave. They can just see. I know where you came from.
They don't know that a purchase was made.
No, but they don't really care.
Yeah.
It's a law that doesn't get enforced, basically. But yeah.
What do you think about the potential for enforcement of laws like that? Do you think that's something that we should keep an eye on? Because it seems like the way things are going now. So let's say you have your Chase bank card. You live in California. You go to state line. You cross the state border. You purchase some marijuana legally within the state of Oregon with your debit card. That's recorded. Your GPS on your phone. Your location tracker's on. Now you know what I mean, and now it shows you crossing back, and you've made no other stops. You've made no other. At what point are we going to get to with law enforcement and tracking of our private information? Do you think where we're going to start to see people being held more accountable for these violations? And
that's absolutely scary stuff.
Orwell stuff.
It is, and I hope it doesn't go there. One thing interesting about the cannabis industry, actually, there's some real interesting things about it. People around the cannabis plant are fascinated by it. It's not like I've known guys who've had meth labs, right? And they're shady, they're screwed up people. They're not proud of what they're doing. They're trying to hide it as much as they can. You go to a weed farm or a cannabis farm and they're proud, they're smiling. They're usually pretty healthy people.
Yeah.
They're not sketchy, typically. You know, of course you get them.
Oh yeah.
So it's an interesting plant that this whole culture is kind of around, and there's some mystic. I'm gonna say mystical is a horrible word, or spiritual, those kinds of things, but there's something healing about the plant, and I've seen it. You know, I'm not the one to say, oh, it heals cancer. It's this. It's bad for some people. I'm sure of that. But some people, I really think it's beneficial to. And and so that's kind of a neat aspect. And the way I do agriculture is a lot of talk about it on my podcast Friday nights at 7, greenbicycles.yahoo.com.
It's 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock
Every night, Monday through Friday.
No, Friday, but
Just Fridays.
Yeah,
Green Bicycles on YouTube.
Another thing is, I
at
think
7
it's
o'clock.
important to be consistent on shows. Like if they just pop in to do a show, it's not the same thing.
Well, like I said, I think there's a reliability that people have
No, yeah.
want you to be there.
Yeah.
As a, you know, it's just
There's
like when we
something
used
to
to have TV programs. Every night at Thursday, The Jeffersons is on, and I can't miss an episode or else I'll be behind.
Yeah, we're kind of trained for that kind of thing.
Yeah, we like routine.
No, there is. So the routine, yeah, and actually
It's
that's
comforting. It's predictable. It's a non-variable that we can mark out of our mind.
that's how the FBI gets you, by routines.
Yeah.
You know that. They figure out people's routines, and
I-
people have routines, man.
Yeah.
I do. Where was I going before we went off on this tangent?
We were talking about the Orwellian future that would exist if
Oh,
our
yeah.
data continued to get monetized the way that it's been and sold and bought by the highest bidder.
Now in the 90s, I'd definitely be worried because back then you lost your freedom over cannabis, and you
Yeah.
actually literally you lose everything. You know,
Yeah.
your freedom, your house, your land. It was pretty brutal. Now I think the momentum is going towards legalization. I would like to see it. I would like to see it like there is. It is a psychoactive plant.
Yeah, of course.
So it does affect your perception or whatever you can say. Some people it's not so, you know, it's probably like alcohol. Some people could drink like a fish and
Be fine.
and function just fine. Some people have one drink and they shit their pants. I'm probably in that category, to be honest with you. But so it needs some kind of regulation, but it also, yeah, until it can cross state lines legally, that's when it'll really prosper. Again, that the whole recreational has really, it's very good for consumers. They've benefited a lot. You can go and get it. It's tested. It's safe. It has the paper trails.
It's regulated.
It's
to an
regulated,
extent, to a
almost,
healthy extent at this
or
point.
even maybe a little more. But
Okay.
that could be talked about. But consumers have really benefited. The farmers have been hit hard, and some of them, if you're listening, might not like hearing this, and I pointed out, they had a really good run. You know, they made
At the
really
time,
good money.
Black market cannabis farmers.
They didn't pay taxes.
Yeah.
You know, they had a pretty good life. A lot of them went to South America.
There wasn't a high market saturation. Like
No,
there is now.
it was. You know, you were an outlaw, and and there were risks, but the rewards. There was a risk reward ratio that, you know, people decided to take it. Now the farmers has a really tough. Especially in Oregon, the prices have just dropped precipitously.
Yeah.
In the whole chain now, you know, there's different pieces in cannabis. The grower, you can't transport it if you grow it. You have to hire that person. You have to go to a lab. You
Do you
know,
think that's why more people are going towards distillates and textile cannabis, textile hemp?
those are no. What do you mean? I think those are two different questions.
Do you think that because of the fact that it's more accessible now, it's less controversial? Do you think that's why people are looking at it more seriously as not only are they producing flowers for bud shops and things like that, but they're also producing hemp for cloth and things of that nature, or other remedies or lotions, and they're also producing more distillates now, like high quality extracts and things like that. Do you think people are more willing to invest money into the industry in its entirety surrounding this plant now that it's more legitimate, let's say?
Absolutely, hemp, and there's still a little distinct one. So those are two good topics. Hemp is actually a really fast. What's nice about hemp and CBD stuff is it's not considered, if it has less than 0.3% THC, it's completely legal.
Yeah.
So you can ship it across. You can ship it to China. You can ship it to India. So there's a world market built in. So actually, hemp is a real interesting area of agriculture. I think, and I hope it pans out well, because there's a lot of benefits to the hemp plant. It grows really fast. It produces a lot of fiber.
Super sustainable, right?
It's sustainable as you can, way better than trees.
Yeah.
You know, if we want to spend a little more, that the plastic that, you know, you can make plastic with hemp. Costs more, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 times more than, but if
More
we're willing to
friendly.
pay that, but it degrades in 9 months.
Yeah.
It's back to carbon again. So there are some real possibilities. How I look at it, concentrates, I look at it as practical bean counter kind of situation in this sense. Because what I learned about my business in nutrients is shipping. It's all about shipping. You know, it comes down to marketing and shipping. How do you get it to them?
Yeah.
Especially things that are heavy.
Yeah.
I've exploited flat rate boxes, because
How big are your single unit?
I sell 25-pound units, which is a large flat rate box, and I only sell units that make sense. You know, it's like, I'll sell 2 pounds if you want it, but it's going to cost you the same amount to ship 2 pounds, and it's more to ship than the price of the product.
Yeah.
Typically, especially out of this country. So so if you think about cannabis, and say you grew, and just think the volume, a pound is let's say a square foot,
Okay.
roughly, for a pound of flower, right? So if you're going to ship that, you know, how many, you say you have a Sprinter van, how many pounds can you fit in that Sprinter van, square feet? I don't, cubic foot.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, it's a limited number, right? Let's say 100.
Okay.
I don't know what the number is. So you can get 100 pounds of flour into a van, and you have to transport it. Let's say you get $1,000 a pound, so you can transport 100,000 pounds. I know that these numbers sound
No,
high,
we're just
but
round numbers.
round up. Now, if you concentrate it and you put it into shatter, you can get, you know, 1,000 pounds of shatter in that same van, and that shatter selling for not $1,000 a pound, but $3,000 a pound.
Yeah.
So it
Higher
makes,
quality good.
and it's more compact, it's denser, and you
Just
can
makes more and more sense.
and you can ship it. And you got to think of that in big terms, like small farmer boutique stuff. You don't really think in those terms, but when you start getting big corporations, which it is now, you know, when I used to be an inspector, like I said, for that one program. So I went through the stage of medical to recreational. And when it was medical, no one really did more than 99 plants, because it was like it's federal. We're worried about the feds coming in.
Okay.
So typically farms were, pretty much all of them stayed below 100 plants. Now there's 30,000 plants, 50,000 plants, 100,000 plants, and some in acres.
Oh, just the
Done by
drive from
the
here to the
acres.
199. I mean,
Oh,
just what's right off the highway. It's. I never would have thought when I was younger that you would see something like that right off the highway. You know what I mean?
No, and 800-acre farms, and so when you're doing that, you start looking at things like, well, okay, we can dry all this and process it and ship it in semis, because you're literally multiple semis, or we can. And what's kind of cool, and what we're talking about is a lot of, since it became recreational, a lot of creative people are creative. They get high and get creative. Sometimes it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But like, one of the things that came on is now there's services that will come to your farm and process it right in their own trucks. Like, they'll have freeze dried trucks. So they immediately, instead of drying it and curing it and trimming it, which is super labor intensive or equipment intensive.
A lot of overhead for paying.
Yeah, place will
human
come
beings.
in, flash freeze your product, run it through some kind of process it's usually some kind of hydrocarbon, CO2 or you know, butane or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and concentrate it right on your property, and then it's easy. Then you ship it out to a wholesaler. So those things, yeah. The reason, yeah, 2 different kind of questions, but one of the reasons is the concentrates are so big now is they're just easier to deal with from a money point of
From a
view.
financial point of view, it's not all just stigma.
No, and plus the market's developing that people like. Although it's gotten, to be honest with you, it's too strong.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is not, you know, definitely if you want to try some of the stuff, do not go to a concentrate first. It's because it's like any other thing. You develop a tolerance, and you know what to expect. There's some very
Just put a Coors Light in a glass of moonshine,
yeah,
kind of thing.
yes, yes. So
Well, it seems like there is more comfortability now from investors, right? To get into it now that it's more legitimate, more legal on any level, whether it's the nutrients that supply it, whether it's anything culture related. It seems like they're more willing to put big money. I mean, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, right? I mean, it's one of the largest emerging industries in the
yeah,
nation.
it's unique. It's an industry. It's been underground for a long time, forever almost, but especially since the 70s, I would say it's really gone underground because
Yeah.
penalties went way up then. But it's becoming legal, so it's kind of there's some ways that it's emerging. A lot of the old timers kind of got, if they weren't like, I always say, if you're not like an octopus, you're gonna be in trouble. You better be flexible
Okay.
because before the game has changed
Yeah.
and you got to be able to do paperwork and
Adapt
pay,
and
and pay
overcome.
taxes and pay employees and it's changed, but yeah, it's very. I'm fascinated by it. I look to myself as like the guys who made money during the gold rush sold the Levi's and shovels.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So that's where I'm at with that.
Well, it seems like too, you're not just focusing on the cannabis industry alone anymore. I mean, your audience and your influence is branching out to all types of sustainable farming, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I've
yes.
talked to no shortage of whether they're small time at home providing for themselves gardeners, my own mother included, that have used your product, and there's a reason that they keep buying it is because when you have a zucchini go from standard zucchini size that you see in the grocery store to you're using your two-part system and you're seeing your yields triple. I mean, that's insane.
It's actually a good product, and what's interesting about like gardening and talk about we talk about we're like we took some steps forward when we thought we were smarter than we were, and now we're taking some steps back, but in a modern sense. For example, you know modern fertilizers. I don't know how much, but ammonium
I have a
nitrate.
cursory knowledge.
Ammonium nitrate was left over from World War II because it's a bomb making material.
Yeah.
I don't know what the story was, if it spilled on a field or whatever, but it turns out it's a great fertilizer great fertilizer in the sense that, man, these plants,
Are large.
they're growing. Turns out it's kind of toxic to the soil and it runs off and it screws up water systems. They said, oh, here's a great source of fertilizer. But then you get plants that are not resistant to pests anymore, and you get monoculture kinds of things, and then the Monsantos come in with more and more chemicals, and it's a kind of a vicious cycle that we started with modern farming, and now we're learning, like, and a lot of the stuff we talk about is might sound hippity dippity, but it's about building a living soil, because soil is if you have an acre of natural ground, 90% of the protein on that acre is below the surface of the soil.
Yeah.
It's living. Can't see everything.
It's all the mycelial netting and the nutrient layers.
And the nematodes and the worms and the things, it's mostly below the soil. And a lot of the modern agriculture with fertilizers and pesticides and salts have destroyed the soil. Like potato farms are absolutely sterile. Yeah. But when you have a living soil with a lot of diversity, things grow so much better. And yeah, that I'm kind of got on that bandwagon, and I sell to citrus farmers and home growers all the time, and it's really simple.
Your mixes are organic as well, right? That's something that's obviously important to you, right?
Yeah, because what it does is you build living soils, and like when I said we got outsmarted ourselves when the cannabis was really lucrative in the 90s. The early 2000s, there was a golden age where it was even in the 80s it was very lucrative, but it was very dangerous.
High penalty.
They came in with helicopters and guys with black suits jumped down and parachute down in your land back then.
Yeah.
But it was very lucrative, and then there was a whole hydroponic industry where these grow. There was 5 grow stores in Crescent City at one time.
Yeah.
8,000 people, 5 grow stores. And in bottles of nutrients that cost $200 and $300, But back at that time, you could fall off a log and make money because the prices were really high. Once the prices, everything went legal, the prices dropped really low. People had to start saying, I can't afford that crap anymore. And it turns out they didn't have to. And so they started looking at green natural farming and living soils. And there's been some real gurus in the pod industry, as well as a place like Rutgers University is doing a lot of good research on, what is this? How does the mycelium help feed the plant? But it turns out there's a lot of communication in the ground. And it's like the redwood forest here. Nobody fertilizes those.
Mm-mm.
And there is a communication between the mycelium and the roots. So it's really kind of interesting how.
Yeah, you're right. On the redwood tree, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, cursory knowledge, but their roots grow together, right? And that
Yeah, I
kind of
think it's
provides
all
the stability in the.
And
in
I
the
think
storms.
it's like it's one plant. Like a bunch of trees are one plant.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't
it's
aware
like
of that.
mushrooms are. I think are that way.
Yeah, the mycelial netting is the actual
It's
plant,
huge.
and an
mushroom-
analogy that I always heard was that when you take a mushroom, it's like taking an apple off a tree.
Or it's actually like the sex organ of the big plant that's on
Yeah,
the
it's like
ground.
plucking the cock off the tree. That's what I said. Wasn't that what I
The
said?
cock.
Oh yeah, or like the sex organ off the no. They always there's always
Where's your
there's always this old wives' tale that the only reason that mushrooms produce or trees produce fruit, right, is to take their seed and distribute it, and they make it delicious and full of sugar and nutrients, so that animals will come along and shoot it through their digestive system and then put it somewhere else, so it's not right at the base of the tree competing for nutrients. But with mushrooms, it's very similar, because the mushroom fruit body drops the spores and expands the mycelial netting. But in the same way, a lot of mushrooms, I believe, from what I understand, they do want to be consumed and taken around, and they want to spread out their mycelial netting, their patterns, by dropping spores in different areas. But the thing about mushrooms that's odd is that they do different things to the soil than other plants do. I know that there's alternating crops you could plant, and I'm talking out of my ass, so this is totally incorrect, but you could plant beets, and the beets help the soil for the lima beans that are going to come after it, and one of those type of patterns. But with the mushrooms, something unique happens, because they're not like a typical plant. They take in oxygen and produce carbon dioxide. They have a different ecological footprint that does something special for the soil. And it seems like more and more people, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Stamets. He's like I could be talking out of my ass again. I do that a lot. But he's one of the leading mycologists, I think, the world over. I know he's had several TED Talks where he's come on and talked about the symbiotic relationship between mushrooms and beehives to help fight the mites and degenerative wing disorder, and free up beehives from some of these pesticides and the side effects that are coming from that, much like you're talking about the plants and the fertilizers and the insecticides that are having long-term effects on the health of the plant, as well as the soil, as well as the people consuming the product produced. And it seems like with sustainable farming, it's all kind of coalescing at this moment in the last 20 years, where we're starting to understand the relationship that nature has intrinsically inside of it, and we're figuring out what that is and how to read it and how to pair plants and how to make things more sustainable. And it's really promising, especially areas like up here in Humboldt. It seems like a lot of people, yourself included, are doing a lot of work towards that kind of culture, to have sustainable organic things that'll keep bugs off your plants and keep your plants growing strong and keep your soil healthy, and assuring that you can plant and grow and reap harvest every winter and every, and have things to sustain yourself, free from grocery stores and free from, I think more and more people are falling back to that kind of primitive, I wouldn't call it primitive, but deliberate, purposeful, self-sustaining lifestyle. And you're playing a big part in that in this area, and I think this area is one of the leaders in that kind of research.
No, it is, no, it is, and it's nice to be part of that. Like I said, you can actually remediate old dead soil that has no nutrients in it in a matter of a couple of seasons. Using some of these methods, and one of the guys that came on my show, who's one of the gurus in this area, his name is Chris Trump, no relation.
Okay. No relation.
No relation. I'll just say I didn't even ask him, to be honest with you, because I figured he got.
So there might be a relation you don't even know.
I've heard. But anyways, his family was a macadamia farmer, nut farmers in Hawaii, and they were they were modern farmers with new. In Hawaii, everything's a little more expensive because it needs to be brought in. So
yeah,
they were looking. It's a total bean counter kind of guy and is looking at his, the profits and losses. And the man, we were putting a lot of money into fertilizer and pesticides. It's like, that's a huge chunk of money we're putting out every year. So he started, investigating, and he ran across this old Korean guy. His name, I think he's called Master Cho. And he in these regenerative, and it has a lot to do with
His name is Master Cho.
Master
That's
Cho.
kind of his.
Kind of that.
Is a website, or does he have?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
But if anyone's interested in this, check Chris Trump is his name. But it's a lot of fermentation. And what's fascinating about it is basically what you're doing is like the living soil. What you do is you cultivate what's around you. So quick ideas of it, like you'll get like a starch, like rice. You boil up some rice, and then you'll put it in like some cheesecloth and bury it like in the forest or in your lawn somewhere. So what's going to happen is the living things in your soil are going to grow on that, and then you take and you refine it. But what's kind of cool about it is everything that you make in Korean natural farming is healthy for you. It's like that kombucha kind of thing where you're making living organisms that turns out we rely on. Our gut biome is still, I don't know if it's well understood, but it's important to have a lot of other things.
A lot of healthy floras.
Yeah, so like
that.
the sauerkrauts and the fermentation and kimchi and all that. It's kind of along those lines, but it turns out what you're doing is you're using inputs from your property to make super concentrated, like 1 part per 10,000 fertilizers that are absolutely all natural and healthy. But anyways, Chris Trump's farm, after he did some exploring, it would look like, I grew up around Chico where there's nut orchards, where it's brown fields with trees and nothing between them. No grass, nothing.
Okay.
And that's what his macadamians used to look like. But now when you go into his orchards, there's grass. It's not monoculture anymore.
Yeah.
It's as many varieties of plants as possible, as many kinds of bugs as possible. The grass is like up to your chest. It's like, it doesn't look like a well manicured forest, but his nutrient cost is almost gone to zero. His pesticide cost is almost gone to zero. And the product
sustainability is going up.
And the product is, and he goes, just from a capitalistic point of view, I know it sounds hippie-ish to go, natural farming or living soil, but it makes total sense from a bean counter point of view also, because you get everything local is the idea, sustainable. You don't ship stuff in from Canada or the States or the mainland or whatever.
Well, that's one of those things that I never understood people's preconceptions on. I used to work at a organic juicery they call the Beaming Superfood and Vitality Bar in Del Mar, down in Southern California near San Diego. And I used to work down there, and people would go, "Oh man, you're paying all that money for organic food," and da da da. And it's like, in my mind, because at that time I had seen, I was kind of semi-familiar with naturalistic ways to grow food and kind of cycling plants and different types of soil. I was familiar with those concepts, but it's like, if I have 2 apples and I tell you this one has some chemicals on it and this one has some natural stuff that does the same thing. I mean, if this one has to keep the bugs off this apple, I used XYZ chemicals, phosphates, and all this bullshit. And then on this one, I took a little bit of water with some cayenne pepper in it, and that also kept the bugs off. Which one are you going to want to eat? If you're thinking about it consciously, and it seems like pretty much a no-brainer. And I don't see the science, or I don't see the thought process behind dismissing organic foods or organic ideas as hippy dippy. I've never understood that, but it seems common, right? It seems like people go, that's hippie. Nothing's really organic. It seems like there's a lot of that naysaying about organic materials.
And I'll be honest, there's probably some truth to that. Somebody says it's organic.
Yeah.
Am I testing it? Am I sending it to get a test on it to see what chemicals are on it? So there is some trust and faith in it. I think there's a lot of culture. Like I said, I think probably after World War II, we went in some wrong directions. Like we were trying to take, the easy mass-produced start throwing things away. I think that was more later, like 70s, 80s, 90s, where we became a lot more, there used to, when I was a little kid, if you had a TV and it broke down, you took it to a TV repair shop.
Yeah.
That would be unheard of now, right?
You just throw it away.
You're just going to throw it away and buy another one. So that's that's probably not a really good thing. I think our food, we went in a lot of wrong directions, starting with like, look at these TV dinners,
Yeah.
you pop in a TV dinner and you know what's better, a home cooked meal.
No, you want the Hungry Man
Yeah.
chicken fried steak with the,
What is that?
yeah,
I don't even know what it tastes like. It's got some kind of gravy on it. Kind of good. I don't know. There's salt in it, but
Well, and they're consumer goods, right? There's a reason you can get a full plate of food for $1.39, and it's because it's low quality, right? It's because there's an understanding here that, hey, listen, we're not giving you the Wagyu beef and the straight Idaho spuds here. You're getting powdered mashed potatoes and whatever mystery meat we've ground up into this steak shape this week, you know?
no, and I might be talking crap I don't know about, but I think like the sugar industry gets, and people love sugar.
Yeah.
It's in so much stuff.
Oh, it's in the gravy that's on your Salisbury steak?
And I think sugar's subsidized a lot, highly subsidized. So it makes things, people want it, and it's cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a little more work typically in organic stuff, but we've lost our way in many ways. You know, once we get into this, but
As much
150
as you want, bud.
150 years ago, in general, mankind, it was pretty hard scrabble. You know, there was not a lot of, you spent a lot of your time getting your food and your shelter and your, that's what most people, I would say, when like our country started, were agriculture, right? You lived on, most people had their own chickens and, and
They were
goats.
self-sustaining.
They were
to a point.
self-sustained, like the average wage was like less than $1 a day because you had everything provided, or you provided everything, and it was a tougher life. And things definitely got easier, but I don't think they got better. Even like right now, electricity is a fairly new phenomenon. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's what, 150 years old, maybe, not even that, right?
No.
But in that amount of time, we've become completely relying on it. Our society would absolutely crumble if all of a sudden, for whatever reason, we didn't have electricity. I mean, a lot of people would die.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know what to do. The whole thing, so sometimes you can look at it as a real progress, but again, it makes it a little more fragile, a little more, because 200 years ago, we would be expected to know how to get by, to do what we needed to do to keep going. And it wouldn't be necessarily easier, but we had those skills, and I think a lot of those got lost.
No, I think you're right. I attribute a lot of that to, I think people's, it seems like what you were talking about 150, 200 years ago, people were more sustained by a simpler lifestyle, and it seems like now people want more. They don't want to spend all that time farming, and they don't want to spend all that time making textile goods and processing goose down to put into pillows, and you know what I mean? People don't want to get their hands dirty and do those kind of things or learn those trades because they're too busy pursuing other things that are more important to them, and they don't have to survive.
No.
It's not a necessity.
And we like shiny things a
Yeah.
little too much. Now, and I have a theory, it might run by you, but it's so crazy that I don't know if we should go.
Yeah, let's hear it.
But yeah, things have gotten easier. I don't know if they've gotten better, and I think animals in general, it's like if you feed bears, after a couple of years, they forget how to hunt.
Yeah.
They tend to go for the least path of resistance. I think that's just kind of
Animal nature.
maybe part of animal nature, evolution, or whatever you want to do it. But we tend to do that, and we've obviously done that. I kind of look at just at a real fundamental level. Well, what's important? What's important for me to what's important? What are the things that are important? Well, I know one is, I look at it as a pyramid kind of. Top of the pyramid is oxygen. And I know that sounds like,
no,
but
100%.
Take away that from me, I'm a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Sayonara, I'm gone, right?
I say 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without oxygen.
So the next thing on the pyramid is water.
Yeah.
Really important. Like oxygen and water, like the two most fucking important things by far to me than anything else. Oxygen, then is food.
Yeah.
right? Those are, without those, life is miserable or non-existent,
Yeah.
or it's not going to last very long.
Very short, a brief experience.
So those three things are like absolutely required, and we shit on, and look what we shit on. We shit on our air, we shit on the water, and we shit on our food, and they need to be more important, because they are more important. And I think we like the things way lower on the pyramid, like, after food and water, it just sounds too crazy. Shelter's probably next.
Yeah.
We want to be warm.
Yeah.
So those are really important.
Number 4 is important while you're having number 5.
Yeah, and then you start getting things like relationships and family, and those are way up there too, but they're not apt. You could live without those. You can
exist,
but those are real close to being a meaningful life. And things like TVs and gold chains, those to me are like cars, are way up on bottom of that pyramid, deep down on that pyramid. We've kind of inverted that, and where those are the most important things. I don't know. That's kind of how I feel, and I'm part of that too.
Well, a high value used to be placed right on utilitarian goods, right? On axes and shovels and clothing that was going to be durable and allow you to wear it again and again. And now it seems like they're just, you buy jeans with holes already in them because it looks like you've lived a life of hard work, which gives you something interesting about you, but you're really just purchasing a good that's pre-damaged to create a facade. And it's the funniest, most ironic thing I think in the world, that the whole clothing thing, because it seems like people do spend more and more time at a job that's non-fulfilling to pursue goods that aren't utilitarian and don't provide any value to their life beyond what they assume is the status symbol of, and I'm guilty of it too. I got my Adidas slides, right? Because I'm an Adidas guy and I like it. And I got my cool Vans off the wall hat because I'm kind of like a surfer type guy and I like it. And it's funny, the things that we try to communicate about ourselves, but I think it comes down to you have to at least be conscious of it. If you choose to indulge in,
I think that's why I left myself off the hook. Is I understand I'm a hypocrite in so many ways.
Oh, same.
It's most people are, and that's one of the things that we tend to not like about other people is because I think it relates that it's one of those things that it's kind of a mirror. So we really hate other hypocrites.
Mirrors are uncomfortable, buddy.
Hypocrites are horrible, except mine. But I justify it by saying this is the game I was born into. The rules, I could choose to not play by the rules, but I would probably have a pretty limited.
Right.
That could be okay too. But I that's how I kind of justify living in the modern world. But we have gone astray in a lot of those ways where really important shiny things that and I think there's studies done that, like when you buy stuff, it's like the hunter instinct. The thrill is buying it. It's like seeing it and saying, I want that. You go get it, you pick it up and you put it and take it home, and it almost just like that value almost disappears completely, like instantly. It's like it's the getting it. It's like I see it, I want it, and you can get it, money or whatever, and that gives us some satisfaction at some level, but it's short-lived. It's very short-lived.
Do you attribute that to the thrill of the chase, depending on the thing that you're looking at, or do you attribute it to? I would assume, like for myself, I find like with ice cream, right? That's my big downfall. I always go and I'll eat a whole pint, and then you eat the pint, and you're like, God, it seemed like it was such a good idea, and then afterwards you're kind of sitting there, and you're just kind of feel like shit, and you're a little overstuffed, and you're all sugared out, and you're kind of going to that carb coma, and before you drift off to sleep and you lose consciousness, you're going, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have. And I think it's a preconception that we have in our mind about how good something's going to be, or how good it's going to feel to do this thing, or achieve this thing, or consume this thing, or perform this act. And then when you're done, you're kind of just left feeling like, oh man, there wasn't any nutritional value to that. It was just empty calories,
Yes. Yeah. Humans are funny individuals for sure, and these are just But anyways, I think we're kind of it's easy to be pessimistic, especially like in the last year. I mean, come on.
Oh God, yeah.
It's insane the pessimism you could have, and
well, especially for Americans. I mean, this is the worst. We're trapped in our houses with our internet and our electricity and all the food we need.
And I think if our founding fathers were to like come in a time machine and come here and hear us complain
Yeah.
about we don't have enough, we need more,
Yeah.
people are taking from us, I think they would slap the shit out of us and say, "Do you realize how easy your fucking
What we
life is,
achieved here,
and you
yeah.
don't appreciate it?" So that's one side of the coin you got to look at too.
Yeah.
And so far, I've lived in a really interesting, probably historically, as far as humans go, in a real interesting. My life has been in a real interesting time of humanity where it's been very easy for me. I was born after, I wasn't old enough to be drafted into Vietnam. So, and that was a horror. You talk about we have to wear a mask. Well, they sent people to get their fucking legs blown off in a country they didn't even know existed. And that was pretty infringing on their freedom too.
Oh yeah.
And that was considered you have to do that.
The draft.
So I was lucky I didn't have to go through that. Everything's been pretty. I've never been hungry, other than I'm hungry, but never like
just the munchies.
I couldn't fix it somehow, I've been in a very fortunate place in the history, because like I said, I think historically we've had a pretty hard scrabble. Most people had a pretty tough existence. It wasn't like, I'm sure there was enjoyment and pleasure. There had to have been, but
oh no, we're in the top 1% of the most comfortable, softest fucking
kings,
human beings that's ever.
there's
Yeah.
probably not a king in history that would change their life for us. I don't know.
You know what's funny is that I remember going to a dinner with a couple friends, and one of our friends was a female, and her boyfriend that she had wasn't somebody that I particularly liked up until he said this quote, and it made me really happy. And he was kind of overindulging and kind of having maybe one too many, and the gal kind of nudged him. She's like, calm down or stop being so gluttonous, because he's scarfing food and he's drunk and he's having a good time. He's being loud and rambunctious, and in my mind, I'm kind of going, oh, this guy's kind of being obnoxious. But then he said this thing, and I really liked it, and I really liked him after that. And he said, what? He's a fucking king would die to eat like me 150 years ago or 200 years ago. And as he's sitting there, and I think we were having a meal at Oxenfree, right? And he was right. He was dead right. He was... It's funny, if you think about it, it's like, yeah, okay, you can have a castle with all the gonorrhea latent whores that you want, and all the petulance, and or you could just be a pretty average person or a pretty upper middle class person today and have so many more creature comforts than were ever available to the kings and queens, the highest monarchs. Even people on food assistance programs have smartphones and massage guns and nice cars and jewelry for aesthetics only, and
No, I wouldn't trade places with a king who had a toothache.
No, yeah, exactly. What the fuck?
Because that would be you're fucking miserable. I don't care.
Ambisol, what the fuck are we doing here?
No, I can go get Novocaine and get it pulled out. Really, back then I don't know what, but yeah, no, I think we're not appreciative as, and also I think it's very fragile. I think the veneer of society is very thin. I think we're seeing that a little bit, and I've lived. I consider it a bubble, kind of like I was saying. Very fortunate, and I'm a little afraid. That could change in my lifetime, where the things that we take for granted are such a veneer of propped up by so many, like faith. Like money is faith, right?
Yeah.
It's purely a faith that it works, and so far in my lifetime it's worked, but it hasn't always. There's times where it's not good anymore.
Markets crash.
It happens. And for us, I think it can happen. And some of the signs we're seeing, it's a little scary, because now I'm finally getting my mom's finally getting successful.
Yeah.
And it's all going to go away. What the heck?
Have you found impacts on your business due to the coronavirus in the last year? Have you found any trending?
This is what's really strange is, I've had a good year.
Yeah.
My life has not changed. I'm kind of I'm not a bar person. I'm not a real sociable person. I'm just not. This is not me.
Yeah.
So this is kind of weird. Like tonight, I felt like I was going on a date. I took a shower.
Thank you. I appreciate
I brushed
that.
my tooth.
Yeah.
I did everything, because it's like, I got to go somewhere. But no, it's actually, gardening is good. The cannabis industry is going really strong this year. Have some good hopes for next year, but no, and that's here. I'm gonna go a little political.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
That's why like They want to give me a $1,200 stimulus check. Honest to God, I don't need it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, if they send it to me when I cash it, could I spend it? Yeah, well, I probably will. But I would, if I was making the rules, I'd say if you told a restaurant they needed to close, and you made someone, because no one's made said I can't earn money, but
Yeah.
some people are telling you can't earn money.
Yeah.
Those people should be at the very front of the line, and saying if we're closing your restaurant or your business, you're first in line.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
And I would. I'm not trying to be saintly or something, but just from a practical matter, honestly, my business, and I think a majority, if you can believe statistics, which are so hard to do anymore, the majority of Americans are pretty much doing the same as they always have.
Yeah.
It's as far as financially go, less than, it's not more than half the people lost their jobs, but restaurants especially, I really feel for restaurants because that's a tough business to be in.
Yeah.
It's not an easy business at all, and those guys got slammed so hard. In small businesses like furniture store or whatever, yeah, it's those guys should be at the front of the line.
Yeah.
I don't need it, but it turns out I got a thing today from my CPA, and I'm not sure of the wording because it's funny, but that $1,200 stimulus check that I got was just a loan for this year's taxes.
Oh, did you
So that
realize
was
you're
a
going
loan.
to take it off because you're a business owner?
Or whatever. It's called an advance to this year's taxes. So it's like they loan me that money basically, and it's like wow.
Yeah, it's funny how
But
that
anyways,
works.
yeah. So that political thing, it's like
I think 99% of people would agree with you, man. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of common sense to realize that if the government's coming in and telling you that you can't operate your
Those should
business,
be
that
first
you
in
should
line.
be the first person to
And they
receive
should do
benefits to reopen
and,
your business.
and if the government tells you that, they should pay you not to do it,
Yeah,
or at least relieve your debt or something so you can. I don't know what the answer is.
you don't lose
Thank
your business
God.
license, or you
But-
don't lose
but-
your livelihood, or your
But there are some consequences for telling people they can't earn a living when they have to.
yeah.
Because very few people can go by without having an income. That's not where I'm at, and I don't think most people are. You need a steady source of income to keep things going.
I think if we had the numbers in front of us, I think it would shock us how many people live paycheck to paycheck, even people that make good money.
I think there's some statistic again. Believe it or not, most people don't have $400 in savings.
Yeah,
Majority of people.
Yeah.
Which is nothing.
no, $400.
And I think
What's that?
there's
Two healthy trips to the grocery store.
And I think there's a fair percentage of people who are behind on mortgage payments and rent payments. A substantial percentage of people who got hit with this. And
Yeah.
that I don't see a solution. I think there's going to be a bad real estate drop here.
No, yeah, I think
We're in a really interesting, unique area that I think, if anything, will be buffered from that. But I live, we were talking about, I've done this before where I drove on the Southern California freeways, 6-8 lanes wide,
yeah,
bumper to bumper traffic. You drive an hour to work, go to a cubicle for a corporation. They don't appreciate you. They don't give a shit. They want what you do, but if you're gone, you're gone. They'll replace you like that.
yeah.
That's kind of not a fun existence. Get back in your car and get into traffic.
No,
And I'm so lucky that I can appreciate that. I don't have to do that. And is this wood?
yeah, it is. It's real wood. No, and I think a lot of people, man. I mean, when I moved away, and I did my little bit of moving around. I was living in Florida and down in Southern California, San Diego area, and up in Eugene. That was one of the things that I missed. It seems like you lose a level of you lose an understanding of community in some of those larger cities.
Yeah.
It seems like there's something nice about being able to go and take your kayak down the river and you see 3 or 4 people on the bank also enjoying their day. You know what I mean? There's something nice about a smaller community, a sense of community. I think that gets lost in the big city grind where
There's no
you're
doubt. There's no doubt.
just a cog.
It's impersonal, yeah, and it's brutal. It's really kind of. I think humans were meant to be creative. In general, I think they're meant. That. I don't know, but I know I do.
Yeah.
I love to be able to, have some freedom and be creative, and I think we're Yeah, we're in a, they call it the rat race or whatever, but it's weird how we've adapted to that, where that's the norm. And no, and everyone can't be as fortunate to be able to experience this. So no, I feel very fortunate being in this industry, because it's kind of unique, and it's blossoming. It's got some good publicity, and there's a lot of room for growth,
I
pun
want
intended.
I wanted to ask you about what you think the larger implications of sustainable farming are. I mean, in a sense, you know what I mean. We're not in an ungratifying wheel in a cog scenario up here where we're at necessarily, and especially you because you're working in such a thriving and interesting, growing, and important industry. What what do you see as larger implications of the things that you're achieving right now? Where do you see this all going, sustainable farming in the next 15 to 20 years, if you were to speculate? What do you think the possibilities are? What do you think the implications of the things that you're helping develop right now with nutrient-based systems and things like that?
I wouldn't say development, because these things have been around, and our ancestors kind of knew a lot of this stuff, and we're kind of going back, but we're doing it with a little modern, more analysis, more sensor kind of things, where we can measure things a little better than
More deliberate approach,
more
maybe?
deliberate approach, more, yeah. So I think that's where we have it. Where it's going to go, I don't. That's a tough one to. I would hope. It seems like you mentioned organic food. I think in the '70s that was a real hippie thing. If you were going to an organic co-op, you're probably going to have Birkenstocks on.
But what's the matter with my birds?
just
What are you
saying.
talking
I'm
about?
just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's yeah.
When I was a teenager in Chico, and I moved from Southern California up there, it was like it was a niche. But I think now, you have what, Trader Joe's, which kind of heads it out of direction.
Yeah.
It's becoming more mainstream, and I think people are becoming more aware. But personally, I just think we have the population is going to be an issue. I don't know how maybe this COVID thing is nature doesn't seem to be really thinning the herds too much, but you populate, every person born wants needs water, food, place to stay, and stuff, like everyone. So that has an effect on everything, and maybe, like with the unsustainable farming, the factory farms, maybe they can get, a hog in every 6 square feet, and maximize production. And I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. I would hope that it'll probably grow slowly, but it turns out, like when I first started selling natural fertilizer, it was still back when, like, the hydroponic, the rage, the $100 bottles of fertilizer, the fancy pictures, and that's evolved 10 years later. I was about 10 years ago when I started this. Now it's a majority of the market because now it's like a tomato. You grow a tomato with Miracle Grow, or you grow a tomato with chicken poop. One of the chicken poop, it turns out, it's going to be tastier. It's going to look better.
Yeah.
It's going to last. Probably it'll be healthier because it's naturally, protects itself against pests, et cetera, et cetera. So people can appreciate, yeah, this organic tomato tastes better than the salt one. And at some point, people will hopefully, some will, some already do, that say, food's important, clothing's important.
Yeah.
And those are the things we want to pay as little as possible for. Food and clothes, when those should be those are way up on that pyramid.
Yeah, it seems like, well, it's like we were talking about earlier, the utility of clothing seems to have just gone by the wayside in these other goods, and it seems like some of the things as well in our food, right? I mean, now you can go to a high class restaurant, you can get gold flakes on top of your quail eggs that are on top of this steak that has a brand in it that has your initials, and it's like, what the fuck? At some point, it's just calories in, calories out, right? I mean, we got to get back to kind of,
Yeah, well, and there's that, yeah, and there's also just, yeah, that the gold thing and stuff, that has nothing to do with, I mean, that's not nutritious, right? I mean,
no, it's just, it seems like obscene,
well, it's just like,
signaling or monetary wealth signaling.
no, and I heard this a while back, and it was kind of an interesting perspective, where they busted, like, street vendors in New York selling knockoffs from, say, I don't know, what's a good purse name?
Oh, Louis Vuitton.
Louis
There we go.
Vuitton post.
Yeah.
So they're selling on the corner Louis Vuitton purses for $50. And they're giving, they're putting these people in jail for doing that. Someone said, who should be put in jail is the people selling that $50 purse for $1,000.
No, yeah.
Those are the people who should be getting put in jail.
It seems so ass backwards, doesn't it?
And people, and actually people would honestly, I think maybe I'm wrong because I'm not in that category, but if you told someone who does like wants that Louis Vuitton purse, you said, okay, here's a knockoff for $50. Here's one that you cannot tell the difference for $1,000. Which one do you want? I want one for $1,000. I bet you every time.
Well, that's what I never understood about, like the watches and things like that. And it's like, hey, what's your $500, your $5,000, your $50,000? What time does that watch say? 11:03. My $10 Walmart watch also says it's 11:03. It's amazing.
No, I
how that
know.
happens.
Well, that probably is some. I don't know. That's probably down into what was that? Who was that psychologist? Freud.
Yeah,
It's all
Freud.
about sex.
Yeah.
Because
Your
turns
sexual
out-
signaling and
it turns out I could drive my old truck down the street or drive a real nice fancy car, and I'm going to get treated differently.
yeah.
It turns out, as much as that shouldn't happen, it's absolutely true.
Well, it's just funny because we think about what we always learn growing up, what should matter, your personality and your perseverance and the morals that you have and the characteristics that you have is what should define you. But it's like you said, you could have the same guy, same person inside his chest cavity, inside his cranial cavity. He's not changed whatsoever, morally speaking or intellectually. And you put him in a Ferrari and 9 of the 10 girls he passes on the street are gonna, say something to him, or it seems like that's the scenario.
Well, I think that's there's a lot of truth that there's one guy who I think it was Times Square, was just a kid like you, or and he hired a film crew to follow him around.
I think I've seen some of
And
those.
the crowd just surrounded him, and girls were screaming at him, and take me home, and it was like,
I've seen some of them, and they got to the point where they're asking the onlookers. They were like, "Oh yeah, this is," and he's a famous singer, right? And they're like, "What'd you think of his first album?" And one of the people said the most cliche. They're like, "Well, his second album was just kind of not quite as good as his first album, but his first album, that's what I really like. I'm a deep cuts kind of guy. I'm this totally fictional, made up person that they've never seen before. They've never heard any of their songs because it doesn't exist. But it's like that. I think you use it on some of your marketing. You say, if you know, you know. People want to know, and even if they don't know, they're willing to fake it to the point to where it's like, oh yeah, I'm in. I know what's going on. I know this guy, this actor. This is my favorite actor. What do you mean? He's in that movie that we all love with the filming and the crew and the monetary success. You know the one. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what drives
There's
people.
a fame thing that's really hard to understand, but it's freaking for real. I mean, I think Tupac even said that once. He goes, before I was famous, he goes, women would not look at me.
Yeah.
And he goes, once I was famous, he goes, I was a hot. He goes, I didn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Because I know, I'm gonna a story. It's one of my best stories that I love so far. Is there's one of my customers is a big customer in Delmar County, and they're a big cannabis farm, right? And I sell great customer. And they hire quite a bit of people. So anyways, I met him at Port of Pints one day. He goes, because he owed me some money. And he said, meet me at Port of Pints and I'll pay you what I owe you. He goes, I have a job.
Bar down in Crescent City.
Yeah, so I went in, I got a Coke. I'm sitting there talking with him. And he goes, yeah, I got a job interview. He's doing a job interview. So the kid comes in and sits down. They start talking. I was just hanging out. And the kid said, my teacher in high school won the Cannabis Cup. I shit you not.
Oh.
And I perked up. I'm just listening, and he's talking about me, but he was not my student. And
He wasn't your student?
No, he was never my student.
Oh.
And he was going on, so I asked him, I said, I heard about that guy. I said, what was he like? He said, t-shirt. He goes, he was kind of an asshole. And I'm loving this.
Yeah, because if the kid ever had you for a teacher, there's no way he wouldn't realize it's fucking you.
But it was like it was so cool because the guy who was interviewing knew what was going on. So we were just dying, and I kept asking him questions about me. And he goes, "Yeah, I said, what happened to him?" And he said, "Well, I think his mom got sick, and he moved back down south to take care of her." I said, "So, was he? He was really full of himself." It's a really.
the best.
It was so fun.
Oh.
And then when I got to leave, I shook his hand and said, hey, I said, I showed him my hat or something, and he goes, "Are you Mr. Smith?" I said, "Yeah." And he died.
What
That
his
poor
face,
kid,
did he-
he just shrunk to nothing. He ended up getting the job, so.
Oh, did he?
The lying
Even
part.
after lying through all of it? Oh,
But
man.
that was hilarious. To hear me getting talked about as in a third person or something. That's my closest thing to any kind of. But that was just, he just goes, "Well, yeah, my teacher won the Cannabis Cup," because you just as a selling point for him to get a job.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you bringing up my name in there? And I was like,
What do you think causes
I love-
people to do that? To kind of to try to find something and latch on to other individuals? And
I don't know. I think there's a compulsion to exaggerate a little bit and sell yourself. I don't know. I didn't blame the kid. In fact, I give him T-shirts and shit. All it is one of my best stories. I
that's
mean,
not funny.
my teacher won the Cannabis Cup. Another time said, "You were never my student."
What was he like? He's a real asshole. You're probably sitting there thinking, "I gotta punch you. This is so fucking funny."
Oh, it was hilarious.
Oh,
It was hilarious.
how long did you keep on the hook?
That was a good 10. I did it. I milked it as long as I could. I think he was getting suspicious because I was asking a lot of questions
Yeah.
about me.
Started smiling a
What
lot.
did he
trying
look
not
like?
to
What did he really look like?
Yeah. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. That would have been
That was
hilarious.
that's one of my, the closest thing I've ever come to, like, I don't know, but that was fun. I like that story.
Do you miss teaching?
I do. I do. And actually, this whole podcasting started out, when the first COVID thing came out, parents right away start freaking out. It's like, my
Yeah.
kids aren't in school. What do I do? So I said, I can go live on YouTube and I can answer questions for, I can do science projects. And I remember Dave Boker and Gary Hole,
Yeah.
Barbara
Of
Ringgold.
course.
I kind of got in touch with them and said, "Hey, let's put together a learning class, and maybe, might even be lucrative. School districts might pay us to do online classes or something, because those are actually
Are Dave and
free."
Gary people that you keep in contact with still?
A little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. Not,
Always two really great dudes too. Also two really great educators.
I learned Gary Hole is my.
I never got to
hero.
have Gary Hole as one
Great
of my
math
teachers,
teacher.
but Boker
Dave
was always
also a
awesome.
good one too.
Yeah.
And Barbara Ringgold was one of the best teachers I've ever run across. So, anyways, we thought about it, but it turns out that wheel has been invented.
Okay.
There's so many online that has curriculum, and it's like we didn't invent the wheel. But so I started podcasting for my family, and then it turned out to be just people talking, and they loved it. They
Yeah.
came on and got to interact with each other and see what's going on, and then I just said, I want to do this for my business. And of course, I didn't invent that wheel, but I really enjoy that Friday night at 7:00
Yeah.
podcast
On YouTube.
on YouTube.
On Green Bicycles.
And-
GREAN.
GREAN bicycles. But yeah,
Well, it seems like you have fun, and you're an interesting, experienced individual who's not talking out of their ass, and you have nuanced perspective on things when you start to get into other areas outside of the farming and in the agricultural type conversations. You have interesting, nuanced perspective, and I think that's something that people have seen and appreciate about you, and you kind of draw people from both sides of most conversations
but
to a point where they can.
let's put this in perspective. There's like 10 or 12 people who usually watch.
Oh yeah.
the show, so,
But I mean, you provide a very moderate opinion. You
Well,
don't
the
take
thing-
extreme
yeah.
stances.
I
You're a
like-
very reasonable individual, and I think that shows through.
I want to go because we touched on a little bit, like I have some I know that I think I said a little crazy ideas about like how much we moving things.
Oh yeah.
We move human. If you compare us to other animals, look how much we move compared to any other animal.
Yeah, as far as range goes, or
Whatever. How much
Yeah.
do we move stuff? I mean, look, if you just think about what's in this room, how it traveled to get here.
yeah, that's true.
A fuck lot, right? I mean, and humans like to, and every time you move something, it takes it affects the environment at some level. Mostly, usually not for the good, but sometimes for the good. But mostly, it affects the environment that we live in when we move things.
Yeah.
But it seems a little crazy. But what humans do is move things. Now this is where it's going to get a little crazy, and I'm going to ask you: can you name something that we do where we don't move something? Anything.
As far as
Anything that we do.
where we don't move something substantially,
Move
or
anything.
at all.
Move anything.
I mean, as on some level, you move almost everything, right? Because even when you're singing, right, you're moving your vocal cords, let's say. So yeah, pretty much everything is based off of some sort of motion or vibration or
Movement. That's how we communicate, by moving. At a very fundamental level, we're moving air. We're moving air. We have to move air inside. That's an active thing that our body has to do, is move air in and out of our lungs.
yeah, you can't even essentially on a base level, you can't even exist without the motion of the electrons traveling around your atoms.
Exactly.
Right?
And those are, yeah, and you can go down and say, well, thought moving something, probably at some level it is.
Well,
but
yeah, there's
but
some
until
sort of
you move something,
electric pulses, right?
but you can have a thought, but until something gets moved, that thought is just the thought, right? I mean, I would argue there's some movement, because I think the brain is complicated, but at a real fundamental level, that's all we do is move things.
Yeah.
In the body, it gets a little crazy.
Okay.
In order to move something, it takes energy. That's in fact the definition, the scientific definition of energy. It's kind of it's kind of fuzzy, but the scientific definition of energy is the ability to move something.
Yeah.
Because that's what energy is. So what's the most important thing to humans? It's energy.
Yeah.
That's what we do, right? We use energy to move things.
Yeah.
Because you have to have energy to move. If we didn't have food, we couldn't move. Our body wouldn't move. So that's real fundamental. We need food.
Yeah.
And that supplies our energy to move things, right? So energy is the commodity that humans use. That's what nature gave us, is energy,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that we have, because that's all we do. It's move things.
All right.
Does that make any sense so far?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm tracking.
So when we talk about, this is going a little crazy.
No, you're fine. I'm excited to see where this goes.
So now we're going to take it to, because I hear a lot about, we have a fiat currency, right? It's based on, it's based on faith. 100%. People say,
Based on us as US
based on
citizens,
us
right?
believing that it works, and the rest of the world believing that it works, and it's a faith-based thing. Absolutely. So some people have this thing where we need to go back to the gold standard, where money means something, right? But again, if you take that another step, gold does nothing for you.
Yeah.
You can't eat. I tell you, if you were in the desert and you were dying of thirst, and someone had a glass of water and you had 100 pounds of gold, it wouldn't be even a fucking question that you would trade that 100 pounds of gold for that glass of water.
Yeah.
There's a lot of faith in gold. Now, 99% of now people say, oh, it's in using computers. Well, it's true, but that's very, very, very recent.
Yeah. Development. Whereas gold's been very valuable for a very long time.
And it's bling.
Yeah.
It's like jewelry. That's what gold was used for.
It's signaling, right? We go back to Freud, sexual signaling. It's showing, hey, I have resource. I have rare commodities. I can acquire things.
And there's something mysterious about gold for sure, but practically, it does us no fucking good. It doesn't give us any energy. We can't eat it. We can't drink it. It's just pretty.
Well, the aliens used it in their spaceships, and that's why they want us to harvest it for all this time.
They might.
You've seen Discovery Channel, right? It's aliens.
So what I'm going with this is, our currency should not be based on gold. It should be based on energy.
Okay.
Now, to me, I love you're going to let me talk about this, because I love it. I want to write a book about this, because I think there's something to it. I'm going to give a rough flesh out how roughly it could work, right?
Okay.
So let's say our currency is based on energy, which is the ability to move stuff. That's what we do. In fact, let's say our money was based on a watt. Let's just use the unit of energy, a watt.
Okay.
So let's say you go to work, instead of making $10 an hour, let's just pick easy numbers. Instead of making $10 an hour, you make 1,000 watts an hour. That's the pay, is 1,000 watts an hour. Okay, so you get now, so I work an hour, I get 1,000 watts. Well, what does that mean? Let's just look at it this way. Let's say, well, that 1,000 watts could be charge a battery. Now, what can you do with that battery? Well, you can drive home. You can go home and plug your lights into that battery. You can cook your food with that battery. It's the shit that you need to do, right? That's
Yeah.
what you use. That's what's important. It's what you consume. You can warm your house with that battery. You can barter with that energy, right? So if our currency was based on energy, which is supplied to us by nature, that would say God gave us energy. That's what we need. We need energy to move things,
Yeah.
and it comes from the sun. Ultimately, all our energy starts
Pretty
at the
much
sun.
all energy comes from the sun.
It does, except
Yeah.
there's one exception to that. Well, there's two exceptions.
I had a fun conversation with a buddy of mine about that at one point, about all energy
It
coming
is.
from the sun, and we differed. So what are your two exceptions?
The
We
two-
differed in opinion. I'm excited to see what you, a learned former educator, has to say on the subject.
Well, the two differences are nuclear energy, which comes from uranium, basically. Doesn't
Yeah.
have to, but uranium doesn't come from the sun. It comes from old stars. So basically, you know, if you believe all the scientific theories, it came from an exploded star at some point. You know,
So it came from another type of star.
it came from another type of star, but that's one source of energy that's not solar related. Another one would be the Earth Moon gravitational tidal energy.
Yeah.
If you can harvest tidal energy, that's gravitational energy from the relationship between the Earth and the Moon going around each other.
Yeah.
So those are two forms of energy that don't directly come from the sun, but everything else does.
Even those, right? Because the Earth orbits the sun.
Yeah, in some sense
Yeah.
it does, and the Moon orbits the sun. So but solar does everything. I mean, where'd the oil come from? It came from old plants. Where do plants come from the sun? You know, where does sugar come from? Photosynthesis in the sun. Hydroelectric. Where does well, the sun evaporates water, raises it,
Mountains.
mountains, we can trap it and use gravity to do it. So all of our, ultimately, a vast majority of our energy comes from the sun. So that was given to us. That's all we use.
Yeah.
That's all we need. Now humans in the industrial age have learned to manipulate some of the other energies like fossil fuels, and we've manipulated energy
The
for years,
byproducts of the sun.
which are everything's a byproduct of the sun. It is. And we've exploited that so we can move things. You know, in fact, what did the industrial age do? It allowed us to move things a lot more efficiently, or a lot easier. You can have a locomotive. Before that everything was horse. So going back to it, so if energy was what currency was based on, a couple of good things I think would come from that. One would be, it would be universal. 1 watt in America would move the same amount of stuff as 1 watt in South America or France or China or whatever. So a watt will have an intrinsic value. I wouldn't define what it is at this point because it's whatever it is.
But
It has,
theoretically,
that 1 watt can charge the same battery anywhere in the world and people can get the same amount of light out of it, let's say, right?
okay.
So watt has, or you define it, has an intrinsic value to us, and it's universal. And what that does is it also builds in conservation. So from a capitalistic point of view, let's say you're making cars, right? The guy who can make the car with, instead of 10,000 watts, do with 9,000 watts, he wins. So when you're in industry, you're thinking, how can I be the most efficient on using the energy that's provided? Because that's how I'll win. That's how I'll be competitive. I can build this car for less watts than you can.
Yeah.
So, and it takes control of the money away from the government because it is coming from the sun. Can you harvest sun energy? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Windmill is another sun, wind is created from the sun. Different temperature differentials cause wind. So then you can actually be sustainable on your own again because you can create your own energy. And then things like a strawberry. A strawberry takes a certain amount of energy to go pick. Food would probably become a little more expensive because it would be a real cost instead of an artificial cost because it would be real. And then we would probably say things like, I don't think I want that strawberry from South America because I really don't need a strawberry in December, and it costs a lot of money to move that strawberry up here.
Not
So-
practical.
That's not so, I could do it, but it's more built in that you're thinking about Do I really need a strawberry in December, or is it maybe it's better when you get it once a year? Maybe it's more exotic and
More
maybe
special.
it's more special that way. So I think I could be wrong, but it only makes sense because that's what we use as energy. Because why? Because we move things. It takes energy to move things, and we love to move things.
Do you think that without the manipulation of some of the more harmful byproducts of the sun, like petrol and things like that, that technology in air turbines and things like solar panels and solar grids and these new solar farms and turbine farms that are popping up, do you think that the technology price point will get to the point where it's not going to price itself out of being practical for the everyday consumer?
I hope
The $10,000 set of roof panels for solar is not feasible for a lot of people.
No, and I think it's definitely gotten a lot better.
Yeah,
and I hopefully it will. There are no.
this is an effective way to subsidize right now, but as far as moving,
No, I think it could. I think definitely I don't know the numbers on price per watt, but definitely fossil fuels is the big bang for the money at this point for sure. Unless typically it is. It's super. Fossil fuels are super concentrated energy.
yes,
Super concentrated. And we kind of exploit it. It's like, do we really need to go 70, 80 miles an hour on a freeway? Do we really? Because back in the 60s, I remember.
Tried it though. It's fun.
Oh, it's fun. It is. We love it, right? We love to accelerate.
Yeah.
And back in the 60s and 70s, when you went out and bought a new car, it was always, how did it accelerate? It honestly takes a lot of energy for quick acceleration.
Yes.
You could get 100 miles a gallon in a car, but you're going to accelerate really slow.
Yeah.
You're going to slow down really slow. It's doable. Say, oh, there's cars that get 100 miles a gallon. Yeah. But the oil companies don't want them. Well, you could do it, but you're going to go slow.
Well, there's definitely those innovators in those fields, right? The guys like Musk that have, the Tesla Roadster that goes 0 to 60, and
And I think Elon, and this is my challenging Elon. I think he looked at things a lot backwards because Elon wants to move things faster and faster.
Yeah.
I think we should look at things. Do we really need to move things faster and faster for progress? I think it's like farming. I think we need to take a step backwards. And in fact, if you look 150 years ago about what our ancestors, how much stuff they moved compared to how much stuff we move, it's exponentially much higher. Like how many of our ancestors got shit from China?
Yeah.
Which is a lot of movement, right? We get everything from fucking China.
Most of the stuff in this room, buddy.
Yeah, and how much movement was that?
Yeah.
And like I said, that costs energy. So I think there's ways we can not use as much energy. I think there's ways to harvest energy better. But just think if your currency, you could create your own currency by harvesting wind or solar. Or not everyone can, but it's a possibility now where the government loses control of the printing of money because it's in the hands of what nature gave us, which is the sun, which, honest to God, is everything for us.
Yeah.
Now, does that just sound crazy as hell?
No, I think there'd be, obviously there'd be logistic challenges remaking the world economy on a new currency basis, but I think it's an interesting concept for sure. And I understand its merit, in theory.
And I know this is rough, but I use the battery. Charge a battery, you get a battery at work, and then you take that battery. But why couldn't that be the power grid? The banks be the power grid.
Yeah.
I mean, they know how much it's like. Basically, that's an ATM. Your wall pocket. You have so much in an account somewhere. The power grid is the bank, and because really, we subside. You can do everything you want. You can grow food with electricity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can. That's what we use. That's what's important to us is energy, and it's right now it's electricity. So I think there's something to that. But like this idea, we got to go back to the gold standard. That's really meaningless too.
Well, right now, I mean, essentially, we're doing the same thing, right? Everything that we do still requires energy. Everything that we do still, it still takes gas to fly the plane over to get, my poster of a monkey wearing headphones from China. But we're just kind of taking extra steps, right, for the sake of bureaucracy and tracking and formalities of exchanging different currencies at different rates,
and it gives people a lot of power.
Yeah, it does. It creates these vacuums of power that inevitably seem to get filled by governments
Well, they
more
do.
often than not.
Any power structures usually are corrupt at some level. That's why I think the beauty of democracy is that I think if you look through history, anytime you concentrate power, there's going to be it's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
It's you got to live with that at some level. But the beauty with democracy is that if you see it, you're technically you should be able to say we don't want that anymore. We're going to vote it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way, but I think that's whatever our founding fathers or the Greeks, whoever kind of decided that, or came up with those rough ideas, were huge, big things of like because there's always going to be corruption.
Yeah. Well, it's human nature too.
It's human nature for even I've been yes,
Yeah.
and when you have power, you get corrupted. It's real easy. It's a real rare individual who doesn't get corrupted by some kind of power.
And it seems like the only way that you get those produced individuals that are able to kind of stand up to a little bit of bribing or monetary corruption is from those people seeing the effects that it's had on their predecessors and the way that they were perceived. I think legacy is one of the only things that kind of outweighs immediate power. I think people worry about, and I think that's kind of where you get stand-up figures in history that were maybe not beyond, I mean, even Gandhi, beat his wife allegedly, but I think that's where you kind of get people. There's one thing that holds more value to certain individuals based on their value structure and their moral principles, but it's that legacy concept I think drives certain human beings to kind of overcome those selfish impulses and those desires to betray their fellow man for power grabs or monetary gains.
Yeah, we're a very interesting species, very very interesting. But yeah, I don't know the psychology of it. Another psychopaths too. I think a little tangential, but when you're talking about power structures, I think psychopath are one thing. They're clinically, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
A certain percentage of our population that are born with these some tendencies where it's basically how much empathy you have.
Yeah.
I don't think there's probably anybody who had zero empathy. Even I was watching a show about the Iceman, one of the most brutal mafia hitman there were, but he loved his family.
Yeah.
But he was a monster at every other level, but he truly loved his kids and his wife and was, all intents and purposes, a great father as far as they knew. So we are, but going back to, but on psychopaths, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think they tend to do really well in power structures like government, the military, churches. They rise to the top. If you're willing to shit on the guy you're working with, it's easier to move up the ladder. And I saw in corporations, I saw those people, the ones that they're kind of you don't like them, but that's not me, but probably have those tendencies at some level. But I think it's important to have those because, like, let's say the president. I'm pretty sure most every president's at some level a psychopath. They almost have to be because I honestly don't want to make life and death decisions.
No,
And some people, I think it takes that trait to be able to be a strong leader, and it's not always pretty. People in charge have to make decisions I don't want to make because I tend to be, I want to be fair and nice, and
I think there's a lack of empathy there that allows them to be more rational.
And I think that might be important as much as like we don't like psychopaths. Not all of them pull wings off of chickens or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't all do that. It's just they just have this thing where they don't care so much about anybody else but them and their family usually.
But they are important individuals in history, right? I mean, we look at people like Attila the Hun, which, some people would say, socially he was pretty liberal compared to other world dominators of his era, but I mean a person that did crazy atrocities to a majority of the individuals that he came across as far as other countries and other societies outside of his own, but also was responsible for so many innovations in humanity that we'll truly never know. What do they say, like 1 in 200 people share some sequence of DNA with Attila the Hun, their indirect descendant. And it's funny to think about the impact that one man could have on a planetary scale, even an evil, to some would obviously describe as a psychopath or,
And I would probably venture and just say that more psychopaths have made bigger impacts than people who weren't.
Yeah.
Just because they tend to make more of an impact, I would guess. Could be wrong, but it's a weird, I kind of like said, at first I was like, oh yeah, all these people are psychopaths. But then I started, well, that might be important.
Yeah.
We might need that. We might need that, we might need that gene for some people because that's a weird thing too. We look to leader. We want a leader. It's really weird about that we need a leader.
It kind of seems like we're ingrained that way. It seems like we want
deeply, we need a leader. I mean,
power to defer to.
Universally, we want a leader. And biologically, maybe there has been some where some people are that predisposition.
They have that variant, and then
where they were, because to be an effective leader, I don't think you can be the most humanitarian, fairest person there is. I think just not the way it works. The world's not fair.
Yeah.
I see our students say that's not fair. I say, the fair is the thing that comes here in the summer.
Yeah.
That's the only fair you're going to get in this life. Because life isn't fair. It can be very brutal too, and it isn't.
Yeah, life doesn't give a fuck
So we've been talking a lot of subjects here.
Yeah, we have.
I sound crazy as hell.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
I like
it's
it.
Perfect.
It's normal.
Well, that's what I wanted to do. I don't want to come in, obviously there's points that I want to talk about, and I want to let you promote your business, and I want to ask the questions that I have about it and about the things that you do. But at the same time too, the most important thing for me is for us to come in and have an earnest conversation with each other that ideally stimulates both of us, and that we walk away from feeling like we didn't waste 2 hours. It didn't feel like a chore to sit here and converse with you whatsoever.
I love to talk, especially when I don't have to worry about I love doing these interviews, but I have to kind of stay on point and my mind can't wander because I want to try to I want to follow what they're saying and figure out, well, how's a good follow-up question? And now I just get a ramble. And I don't know if I'd be willing to talk about my energy currency kind of thing on my show.
Well, you know what?
But I really think there's something there.
I think that really there's important stuff that comes out so many times. I mean, how many great conversations have you had with your friends, whether it's 1 a.m. after, staying up all night and partying or something like that, or whether it's first thing in the morning over coffee that you've had and you're like, wow, man, we're really having an interesting conversation here. I wish I could go back and kind of revisit this. And I have so many interesting people that I know in my life that I don't take deliberate set aside time for to have conversations with. And it seems like this podcast was just the perfect excuse to have people that I've appreciated in my life come on and be able to kind of pick their brain and talk to them about whatever happens to come up and just record that awesome interaction.
No, that's good. Actually, I love these kind of, especially when it's, I get it kind of, I got it a little bit.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and no, thank you for having me come on and talk. And I can just ramble, and I go off on tangents. The poor people who come to my show must roll their eyes all because I repeat the same stories over and over.
Well, I think that's part of the thing though too, is that people like getting to know you. I think at a point, I think people like, you kind of feel more familiar when he's, oh yeah, hey, check this out. This is a good story. He tells this one a lot. Check this out.
I don't think listen. I don't think that's what's happening. But that's okay. But I have about 12 stories.
Yeah. I think you might be being a little self-deprecating. I think you're obviously doing something right. If you're, like I said, you've established an audience, you're having people tuning in, you're having people buying your product, you're creating a high quality product, you're reaching out, you're affecting people in a positive way. I think your impact has a lot more reach than you give it credit for.
Well, that's actually, that is actually a nice compliment. And like I said a little bit earlier, I would love to, be somewhat patriarchal in this sense that if I had a business and I could hire people and have people be loyal and treat them like family, it'd be, and I've seen situations like that, and I'm not quite there. That's definitely possible, and I would love to be able to contribute at that like real level where you can help support families and that to me is an ultimate kind of cool thing, and hopefully I'll get there, but so far, yeah, it's been really good. And as I've designed this whole thing or steered it along, I've always steered in the sense that make it workable, I have to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
So that's very limiting, but it's also allowed me to kind of keep it moving forward.
Well, it gives you a lot of autonomy too, right? To kind of run things.
And it actually makes it lean and mean.
Yeah.
You know, like my webpage or whatever. In fact, if somebody's out there, if you know somebody, I would like a web person
Okay.
to
You're looking for
because I have
someone to
them, but
manage
they're
your
not real.
website?
Yeah, right now it's like no, it's just a funnel to Amazon. But Amazon, like I said, that little story I told you, kind of in one of my consultants said, you need to diverse from Amazon a little bit,
Yeah.
and having a website with that you can sell on. First of all, people, it's not a big deal. I do have a built-in audience as I have loyal customers, which I hope I do. They might come to my website, but to sell on a website, you need someone on it.
Yeah, you
And I
need
want someone
team
local.
of some
I want
sort.
someone local who knows what they're doing. So if anybody's out there who's in the Crescent City area,
Good opportunity.
might
Anybody
be an
listening?
opportunity to and it's not like one of those things. I haven't changed a website in 2 years. Nothing's changed. It's not like it needs change all the time. But if I do sell stuff up, I would like to be able to have my finger on that in case the website goes down. I need to know.
Yeah.
I need to have it back up, kind of deal.
What's the best way for people to reach you that would want to get into contact with you about investing in your company, about having you on their podcast, about working for you?
The vesting thing is kind of weird because all of a sudden I'd be working for someone else. And that's what happened to a lot of people in the pot business
Yeah.
is before they were very autonomous. And then we were talking about investors. Well, investors are an interesting group of people.
Yeah, I've seen some of that on a cursory level with some of the MMA and stuff like that. People come in and they want to sponsor you or they want to invest in you.
What they want to
And
do,
then all of a sudden they're trying to call it your shots.
well, they do, because
Yeah.
all of a sudden you are working for them. And that really happened a lot. And when before you pretty much can start with zero. Now you have to have a license, permits, fenced area, cameras, lots of overhead. So investors came in and all the publicity is, oh, this is the green rush. Oh, there's easy money. It's farming. It's not easy money.
Yeah.
It's never been easy money. It's been lucrative, but it's never easy money. And investors come in, this is easy money. So now these guys who are working now, that instead of, the good life where it was risky, but they didn't pay taxes, like I said, had a lot of cash,
Yeah.
lived a pretty not 9 to 5 lifestyle, had a lot of parts of the year off, vast majority of the year, or half the year was idle.
Yeah.
And now they have an investor, they have taxes,
Deadlines.
If a farm gets tested with a pesticide or mold in Oregon, they have to burn the crop. That's new.
Oh, wow.
That's new.
When did that take effect?
A couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
When we went recreational. So all those things came in, but investors are, they want you to make the money. So these guys who used to have it all don't have so much anymore. And I saw them go from smiling hippies with suntans and healthy, like ghostly and not happy anymore.
Yeah.
And I've seen that's the transition. It's like, this is not real funny. I'm on camera. They have to be on camera.
Yeah.
They have to, everything is tagged and barcoded, and it's a whole different game.
It's all industrialized.
And who benefited from that? The consumer.
Yeah.
The producers haven't, but
Do
that's
you think it's important though to have some of that bureaucracy in the industry to an extent when you're looking at things like dosage and quality assurance and
yes. Before pesticide testing, California has pretty strict regulations, but it turns out the internet doesn't.
Yeah.
So there was a place that was in Arkansas called Roseland. I think that's the name of it. And they sold, and I know a guy in Humboldt who bought shit from them, and he showed me that the paperwork, and it was unbelievably toxic. Where like the different levels of protect. There was some of it where you had to wear full on oxygen tank. I mean, horrible stuff, and growers would use it.
Yeah.
Stuff, ovicides, things that kill ovaries, all kinds of and they did it. They abused it.
Yeah.
I saw it. Some people didn't, but when you start testing it, that stuff kind of disappeared a little bit, because it has to. Now the black market is a risky bit. Black market is huge right now, especially
Oh, yeah.
in California. And again, I would rather buy certified, tested, even though there's a loop, there's holes in that system too. There's no
Right.
doubt about it. But I'd rather see a label that had a lab facility information on it than anything else, because I know what goes on in this industry, because it's such a high dollar industry. And it's just,
You know, the potential for error is great.
error, and also just people, money is everything.
Yeah,
And
straight up corruption.
they're not all hippity dippities good guys.
Yeah.
Especially some of the cartels that come up into the forests, and they don't give a shit about the environment. And anyway, so yeah, there's good and bad in everything. It's totally fascinating industry.
No,
Very
I agree.
fortunate to kind of stumble into it a little bit.
I think it's emerging. I think it's more and more. I think people, even on the law enforcement side of it, are seeing benefits. I think people like nations like Canada, who've legalized it for their law enforcement officers and their military, are seeing some of the cultural changes within those departments and some of the ways that it's being used to treat not only injuries sustained in the field by everyone from, for in any kind of first responders, whether that's medical or fire or police, military people coming back from service with post-traumatic stress disorders and sleeping disorders and eating disorders and things that they develop over there for a plethora of reasons. I think the science is coming around more and more and being less it's so clear now to see that it's helping people in so many different ways. I think it's hard for people to see all the facts and the hard data and then keep denying it. It's to the point where it's undeniable how beneficial it is.
No, I hope so. It's kind of like, yeah, they would give soldiers OxyContin, but not cannabis. I think that's changing. Even sports is starting to come around.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even think it's tested anymore, and
It's one of
in
the
a lot of pro sports.
one of the big things. I don't think they test NBA players for it. I think football might still do it, but I know that the UFC, when Nick and Nate Diaz, who
They smoke weed on camera.
they smoke weed every day. I think before his fight with Pettis, Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz was on TV and he was smoking a joint of CBD, because basically it's just like what they're testing you for in the UFC is like 24 hours before your fight. They're making sure you're not under the influence while you're in the ring. That's their main concern, because they're worried about your reaction times and getting hurt, not being able to compete up to par. But before that, I mean, his brother Nick went in there and fought against top of the world guys and held his own, if not beat him. And a lot of times he self-admittedly was under the influence walking into the cage. He smoked right before he went into the cage. And I think it's funny how that sport has mainlined a lot of the stuff like CBDs, the anti-inflammatories, people that are dealing with chronic injuries, people that are dealing with things like that, and they're showing the irrefutable benefits of this medicine, and I don't think that a lot of people are willing to overcome their own cultural bias towards it to be willing to see all the good that it can do.
No, I think the momentum's in that direction. It's interesting that, especially you mentioned Joe Rogan, he openly talks about getting high before rolling or whatever the
Yeah, he's a big
term.
proprietor of that.
And
I think he was taught that way by Eddie Bravo, I think.
in MMA and jiu-jitsu, I think maybe it's just my little circle, but I think, and I'm not involved in it, but I think it's probably one of the most impactful sports in the last 10 years as far as growth and being positive. I think, I think I reached out to you a while back. I would like to, I don't want to get punched in the face. I don't want to get choked out necessarily. I don't want to get an arm bar, maybe enough to where it says, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
And MMA allows that to say, okay, that's enough. I've felt it. And I would like to I don't want to get my ass kicked, and I would, because I know that's what happens.
It
right away.
To an extent it does, but especially with arts like jiu-jitsu, yeah, it's a lot more low-key than a lot of people think. I think a lot of people expect that they're going to go in and they're like, all right, first things first, we're going to do sparring with no gloves, and welcome to Fight Club. If it's your first night, you have to fight. I think a lot of people expect that kind of, and it's not like that, man.
No. But I definitely think, which I think they should, is if you go in there, attitude or no attitude, they're going to let you know pretty fast what's up. It's like they're going to take the cockiness out of you if you have any at all. I mean, they're not going to like knock you out, but they're going to let you know.
Well, it's a filter for bullshit
that we need, that you have something to learn.
Yeah,
and there's a skill here, and don't take it lightly.
Well, I think it's one of those things. I think people, like you said earlier, people like to have an authority figure. You know what I mean, to a point. And I think
Oh,
it's
absolutely. We love them.
on that monkey level for human beings. I think it's re-entering into a dominance hierarchy. Right? You walk into the gym, and guess what? That dude wearing the black belt, standing in the middle, showing everyone what to do. He's gonna beat up all the guys that are wearing the brown belt. And the guy wearing the brown belt is going to beat up most of the guys that are wearing the purple. And there's variances, obviously, and as you get into it. But I mean, in a general sense, there's a top-down hierarchy structure, and I think
And there's comfort in that.
there's comfort in that, and there's
Yes.
comfort in the promise of progression in that because you do get better, and eventually there's going to be a guy that's newer than you, and eventually you're going to tap that guy out, and you're going to go, man, I know how to do an arm bar. And now I know how to do armor on a motherfucker that doesn't know anything. Now I know how to do one on this guy that knows a little bit more than that. And you, the promise of progression within that dominance hierarchy and the willingness to enter that of your own volition is something that I think has drawn a lot of people to it, because a lot of people that participate in jujitsu, or a lot of people that consume MMA, and a lot of people that consume martial arts tend to be people that are also practitioners. In my experience, a lot of people that I know that go to UFC events and go to grappling events are practitioners themselves. They go to a gym, they train. They're maybe they're not Mr. Top level black belt, but they're a white or a blue belt, and they enjoy it, and they enjoy the processes, and they appreciate something that's in a really really far back reptile part of our brain. I think that needs to be fulfilled. I think that wrestling around and in figuring out how to get out of it when someone's trying to hurt you, I think there's something really rewarding about that on a base level.
Well, yeah, I think it's hugely deep, and I keep going back to our like ancestors and stuff, but it wasn't too long ago where you had to hunt, you had to kill things, you had to protect yourself every day, or it was a big part of your life, and at some level that's in our DNA about flight and fight, and those things were much more common than our soft world now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there are some deep down, yeah, like the hierarchy. I think we for some reason we obviously need it.
Yeah.
Or most people anyways. We need a leader. We need, and they're probably good and bad at that.
Oh, I agree 100%, man. I think that
I haven't figured it out.
I think that it's something that if you can get involved in, I think you would really enjoy it. I know if you can, in my opinion, if you can make the drive intermittently, if you're a person that lives the type of lifestyle that you're able to go do that, like I am with no kids, it's just me and my wife, and go over to Grants Pass to 10th Planet to Andrew Alexander, who's a black belt under Eddie Bravo. That's the best place you can go in 100 miles of here. You know what I mean? In my opinion. But if you can't make that venture, there is a really good purple belt. I believe his name is Mike, training people out of Reps over here on the coast, which is Brian Holmes's gym.
Is that
up
right
here in
by
Brookings.
Wingwon? There's one down by Wingwon's that's just open. Wingwon's down that shopping center.
Oh, in Crescent City? I'm not sure what's going on in Crescent City, but I know that they have a couple nights a week. They meet up here at Reps in Brookings, and they do some instruction. And I went in there, and the guy's running a really good program. He's a really good guy. Like I said, if you can, obviously I do. That's the choice I make, is to drive over and get the black belt level instruction. But if it's more feasible for you to start out and learn some of the basics and learn the positioning and go over some of the stuff, I mean, there are options available. And if there's a new place up in Crescent City, I'm sure that I think anything is better than nothing. I say that all the time. People go, what do you think about Kung Fu? Or what do you think about Taekwondo? I think any self-discipline art is better than no self-discipline
No,
art.
and that's going back. That's important movement. That's necessary movement. That some of that movement we've lost. We replace it with other kinds of having things moved for us. But no, I think that's at a real fundamental level of removing stuff, and important movement because it was required for survival.
Yeah. Not only is it utilitarian, but it's spiritual too, to a
Oh,
point.
absolutely. I see that from the outside. I've never been to an MMA fight, but I've watched them, and I appreciate, especially, I did the Joe Rogan, got a fanboy of him. He's, I think he's opened up a lot of this space that we're in now.
Yeah.
And he hits a lot of cylinders. You know, he's kind of ambiguous politically, but he's a man's man. You know, he's a hunter, he's a fighter, he's funny. He's got a lot of things going
Yeah,
that
he
you
covers
can
a
look
few
up to him.
archetypes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's just one of those guys who came along and it struck a chord for sure.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, that might change. I don't know. I don't see him so much live. I used to be religiously love watch him live. I can watch. You know, not everyone can watch a 3 hour podcast.
I have Spotify. It seems like he's lost something in the culture from going to Spotify. It seems like,
I think he has.
and I don't know what that is. It's hard to put a finger on it, but I know he's being censored over there. I know that they've pulled episodes down that he's done, for instance, with Eddie Bravo, that he's done with Alex Jones. I know that they pulled episodes like that, and it's
No, and I've seen that. I've seen that a little bit on some of the because talked a little bit about media. I'm very distrustful of. Well, I see media, the mainstream media is arms of each political party. I mean, it just
Yeah.
seems so fucking obvious to me that some of the media it's not, it's not liberal or conservative, it's Democrat or Republican.
yeah,
I firmly believe that. And it disgusts me because it's just so blatantly off of. And I had some hope for some of the YouTube stuff. You know, there's some different news outlets out there and they're popping up, but I've also seen them get bought out. I've also seen them sell out, and I
there's
hope,
less and less non-partisan individuals out there creating media for consumption.
yeah, because but it's another thing. It sells. You know, when I grew up, this is I think a huge problem too. Is when I grew up, news came on at 5 o'clock at night for a half hour. And you had 3 channels. You know, Walter Cronkite was on one. Whoever the guys were, that's where your news was. It was once a day. They didn't. You know, there's always some kind of
Spin.
some, but not nearly now. Now it's fucking opinion.
Yeah.
It's basically what it is, or dogma or whatever. But then I don't know, in the 90s there was 24 hours news cycle, so they have to come up with a product. They're on 24 hours a day now. They have to come up with a product. It's kind of like slot machines. They figure out how to get you to watch.
Yeah.
Trump was a boon
Oh yeah.
on both sides because you hate him or you love him. He's the most polarizing person, but he brings in. See, the networks admitted that
Yeah.
Trump makes them a ton of money, and they need that. You know, and that shit's not going away. It'll be whatever's the next thing is going to be the next thing. But they get you. You know, even the bell. You hear a bell, ding, breaking news.
Yeah.
And it's like those
Pavlov's
those
dog.
are Pavlov's dog stuff. You know, we got to get our view. That's what they do. We're the commodity.
Yeah.
You know, we're the ones
Are being monetized.
we're the ones being monetized, and they have to figure out how. And it hasn't worked out good for us because
No,
because it turns into echo chambers.
What do you got to do to monetize this, right? To the most effective way to get us to keep coming back is to create passion, but it's so hard to create positive passions in people, but it's so easy to create negative passions. Hey,
And
that
people
guy
love
over there,
that.
he said he could kick your ass, or that guy over there, he said you're a wuss, or I mean, and people do that on in mass, and they go, oh, see that political party over there? They hate you. Hey, you see that other political party over there? Yeah, they hate you back, and it's an enraging. They're creating an emotional investment on your part. I always talk about when I see a movie and I see an actor and there's what's it, Christoph Waltz. Is he the one who plays in Inglourious Bastards and James Bond? He plays a really good bad guy. But I mean, the kind of guy that when you're watching him, you love to hate him. And I think even though you're getting the product of a character they've created that you absolutely despise, you can't stand this person, you are getting emotionally invested in that person's journey or their scenario or their circumstance, and you still, even if you hate them or if you love them, but it seems like it's so much easier to create a person that you hate to get invested in, or to create an enemy, or to create an adversary, or to create a threat that you're worried about, that you're emotionally invested in.
Oh yeah, we have threats are, yeah, it's like that flight or flight. You know, we look, threats are more important than non-threats because they're a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and in the news,
It's gone from African killer bees to Zika to,
no, and pick your station, and these just make me almost vomit. But you know, station A, you get a red and a blue person and yell at each other. and call each other stupid.
Yep.
And everyone loves that. Oh, my side called her stupid. She's stupid. I hate her. And Chris Como or whatever, pick a name, called her stupid. I love it. Or you go to the other side and you see the complete opposite. Oh, they told her. I'm glad she told her. They told her off.
Yeah.
It's like, it's insanely stupid and pointless and not helpful.
Well, and it's funny too because it's so divisive, and
it's designed that way, I'm afraid.
And it is. It's purposeful, and that's what it's funny that people don't see some of it.
No,
you know, and I'm as skeptical, having worked for the government. I'm as skeptical of the government as anybody, but there's a point too where it's like, you know, you get to that flat Earth level of conspiracy where it's like, okay, we're all done now. We're done.
No, there's something very seductive about conspiracies, and it turns out the government does lie to us.
Oh yeah,
Fact.
About big stuff.
About big stuff.
All the time.
About little stuff.
Yeah.
It does, but that doesn't mean the Earth is flat. You know,
Yeah.
But it's easy to go from
just
they lie
because
to
we had
us,
the big
Earth is
pig
flat.
doesn't mean that there's mole people living at the center of the, yeah. It's like,
No, I know, and it's easy to, and I see it all. They even literally do it on chalkboards. A to B to C. It's like, no, you can't jump from A to B just like that.
but I'm writing it on chalkboard.
Yeah,
So that makes
so
science now.
but no, yeah, and from my conspiracy, I think most people agree on 90% of the stuff pretty strongly.
Yeah,
I really believe that. Whoever it may be, the powers that be, whatever that is, that entity, the Rothschild, whoever,
Jay-Z,
the demon you put it on,
Kanye West,
wants it that way because we could outpower them.
Yeah.
If we knew that. And they're fine to divide. In fact, political donors, the big ones, give to both parties.
yeah,
Pretty much even. They don't care.
and that's hilarious.
They do not care.
Yeah.
As long as they get what they get. And our country has legal bribery. You know, and that has to go away. I don't want to get too political, but I hope most people agree with that politicians are bought.
You shouldn't be able to buy elections.
You should not. I mean, they talk that, you know, they talk about free speech, you know, donations are free speech. No, I think politicians should have a day or two a week where they have to listen to any constituent. You don't have to pay money to get an audience with a politician.
Yeah.
There's got to be some way where everyone has access to them. Do I have access to politicians? Not a bit. They would not accept my phone call. If I was a donor, they would answer the phone call.
Yeah.
And listen to what I had to say.
Take it in
And
consideration.
they call that free speech. But it's kind of, to me, the opposite. And that should be completely outlawed. Also, term limits. Go in there, do your patriotic duty, get the fuck out of there. Don't spend your time lobbying and getting money so you can win the next election. Obviously, power is seductive. Those guys do not want to get rid of it. We have every leader coming next year, or even probably this year, all our big top 6 leaders, the head of Congress, Senate, Democrats and Republicans, and president, are 78 years and older.
Yeah.
Every one of them. That's something wrong with that picture. They don't want to give up power. They've been there forever.
Well, that's where I appreciate some of the people. You know, I think that, like you said, 90% of people would agree on 90% of the issues, because it's, some of the stuff is so asinine. I think I was listening to and people on both sides love and hate him, but Ron Paul. I was listening to Ron Paul the other day, and he was talking about $2.2 million they spent on a study on field mice or some small rodent where they gave it cocaine, and then they recorded its breeding patterns after that. And guess what? When you give that small rodent cocaine, it gets hornier and it fucks more. So, who would have thought? Why are we spending money on this? Especially in times now where we have a lot of people economically hurting and our economy is so tanking.
Or that crazy budget that no one was allowed to read.
Yeah.
No one read that. They put it 2 hours out, but 8,000, 5,000 pages. No one can read it. But we do send money to how many countries?
Yeah.
When we're borrowing it, that doesn't make sense. You're right. Those things.
Well, it's funny because we're taking some of that money we're borrowing from China, and then we're giving it back to China at an interest rate. You know what I mean? Or we're losing money on both sides of the transaction.
See, that's an uncomfortable conversation. And I don't know if you've heard this angle. And trust me, I'm not pro-China at all. I think, but
they're scary.
what is their political system?
Communism.
Communism, right? We hate communism, right? Where do we borrow money from?
Yeah.
Who's supporting our market?
Yeah.
Communists. It's really a weird thing when you get in that conversation.
Oh yeah, it makes a
Because
lot of people.
it's hard to get comfortable with that because communism's so evil, but they're actually propping us up financially. Will they take it away from us? Maybe they could fuck us. This thing about China is, but again, they're going to look at their self-interest. They got
Yeah.
what, 1.5 billion people.
They're doing it for a reason. They're not doing it to be Mr. Nice Guy.
No.
They're making.
Because in China, I'm sure Xi Jinping or whatever his name is, I'm sure he's a psychopath like probably every other leader.
All the other ones,
in the
Kim
world.
Jong and all the others.
They kind of have to have that, and they're all, yeah, and they're going to look out for themselves. But it's interesting I've had that conversation with people. Like, do you ever think that we borrow our money from a communist country? Isn't that kind of weird? Who's winning?
It's just
You
funny.
know, which system's winning? I don't know. I don't know, but
The grand illusion persists.
it's a crazy smoke and mirrors world. But we would solve all the problems if we had currency based on energy. I
energy.
swear, we solve
Decentralized
all the
energy
problems.
currency.
That's right.
Yeah.
Then it couldn't be manipulated. A watt's a watt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It creates the same. Yeah.
It creates the same amount of light here or anywhere else. That's my thought.
Oh yeah.
You got me going. I'm sorry about
No, I appreciate it, man. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on. I know this was something that we've been talking about for a while, and I'm glad that we were finally able to put it together and do it, and that we both had some free time. This episode is going to debut in February when I launch my channel. I'm going to get 10 episodes filmed this month, February 1st. They're all going live on my channel, Pacific Skull Sessions. I will forward you all the signage. I'll take some pictures of this and post it on Instagram for anyone that's not familiar. Again, greenbicycles.com. You can check out Green Bicycles Podcast. That's GREAN at YouTube on
Friday nights at 7 p.m. Humboldt time or Pacific Standard Time.
Pacific Standard Time.
I cash in on the Humboldt panache.
One last thing. If someone wants to
Cash
get one
in.
of these tank tops, these Green Bicycle tank tops or hats that I'm seeing online, where do they
You
go?
don't see too many hats online.
Well, I see one on your head, but I've seen the tank tops online.
Yeah, I do.
T-shirts.
The tank tops. That must have been one of my. Anyways, get in touch with me. I can get them. I might have them on Etsy with my partner pretty soon, but I usually give those out. I actually, that's my own. One thing I'm actually kind of proud of is I've never taken an ad out
Okay.
ever. I've tried to exploit, like I said, well, I did like the Jefferson Cup, for
Yeah.
sure, but I've never did an advertise. I buy T-shirts, and I spend a lot of money every year on T-shirts, and
Perfect.
it's a marketing tool. And
Some billion what you call billboards walking around, right? All over the
yeah,
place.
if someone like orders something from, say, a Hollywood or Miami T-shirt,
Yeah, perfect.
somewhere out in the sticks,
That's important. That's an important part of it, though, too. The marketing, right?
Marketing's everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we should do another one, but I think business is a real interesting topic, and what and I hear this a lot. I have a great idea, but I don't want to tell you because you might take it. I
Yeah.
don't know because everyone has great ideas. I mean, it's a common thing. I have this great, and people do. They have good
Buddy, I was
ideas.
just a kid. I invented heated pockets.
Uh-huh.
And then everyone said, why not just hand warmers, you know? and I said, because if they're in your pant, and then sure enough, what do they have now? Heated boots, heated vests, heated pockets.
But this is what I tell people. I said the good idea is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
It's getting that the from good idea to cha-ching in the cash register
Oh, yeah.
is a freaking journey, my friend.
How do you
And I'm
turn it
not
into
going to
money?
take your good idea and go on that journey.
Yeah.
Trust me. You can tell me I'm not going to go on there. It's marketing. You can have the best product in the world. It's like, and
Or
then
you could have the worst product in the world and really good marketing and still make money.
and what used to because I'm when I first started especially and even now it's like my world is green bicycles. That's what I wake up, I'm thinking, strategizing, I'm doing this, doing that, but my world is green bicycles. So when I talk to somebody, it's like, so you know about green bicycles? No, I never heard. What do you mean you've never heard of it? That's all I think about.
Yeah.
But it's all about getting that name out there, and I've tried to exploit some of these methods, and it seems to be working a little bit. But it is a good way to, and like this, who knows where it will go,
Oh, yeah.
and it could be on the internet for years. Now, what is your model? So you have a website that you have You're gonna have a bank of videos that people can just go on and play them,
For
or
now, it's just going to be on YouTube. I'm just
Mhm.
going to have a library on YouTube on my YouTube channel. I also post some of my grappling matches on there. I have some of my old music stuff from the band on there. But I'm going to have a playlist that's specifically for episodes of this podcast. I'm going to branch out. I'm going to do a couple videos with my wife, and we're going to do some videos where we're taste testing 10 different keto ice creams and
Oh,
telling you
okay.
which one's the best one, or doing some
Good
funner
stuff.
stuff. Yeah, stuff that we enjoy, you know. And it's all about doing things I enjoy. If I didn't enjoy having conversations like this, I wouldn't do it.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. There is something about a live show that I find appealing. I think a lot of people do. It's like whether it's a spontaneous or we don't know what's going to. There's something about live
Yeah.
that you know that is a little extra. I mean, I'm real curious to see how this does. I'll definitely check out your videos. And that Pacific Skull.
Pacific Skull Sessions, yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's the name of your YouTube channel.
That's the name of my YouTube channel. Yeah, it's Pacific Skull Sessions.
Do you have anything up on it yet?
Right now, I have one episode that I did with Tom Sheets and Kelly Russell, who are the owners of PsychoPervGames.com, and they created this game right here. So I thought we were friends, and they came on and did an episode.
Is that a little sexy thing?
Huh?
Is that a sexy little game?
No, it's not. Yeah, it could be. Some of it is. It could expose your sexual side by way of your friends ratting on you. But essentially, there's cards in the game, and this is actually funny. So there's cards in the game, and you pull a card, and then everyone gets to vote who out of the group of people playing the game the card matches.
Oh,
But each card starts with "Who the fuck." So like this one. Who the fuck would you suspect of fantasizing about their own father while having sex? And so then everyone has a number, and you all put down.
put that away right there, because that is already way off limits of what I'm going to answer.
It's hilarious.
Oh,
The game's hilarious. But when I did that first episode of the podcast, I had it set up non-organically. I was thinking too much about production, and I had the couch over here, and I had the chair over here, and I had it set up like a stage. And the whole time I'm talking like this. And I'm trying to be as natural as possible, but it's a weird setup. It's a forced, hokey setup. So we're gonna have them back on. They're gonna tell us they've actually got a bunch of cool updates with the company. They've made a lot of headway just in the last 2 or 3 months since I've had them on. And they're gonna come back at this setup. We're sitting across from each other. It's more like we're just having a conversation. It's more relaxed, and I'm going to be really excited for that. Right now, that's the only episode that's up, and I'm not going to delete it or pull it down, but we are going to redo that episode with PsychoPerv Games.
you know, that's a good approach. That sometimes people wait till everything's dialed in perfectly. I kind of from the school of thought, like, do it, figure it out. Don't worry about making mistakes, and they're going to happen, and then learn.
It's easy to let it inhibit you. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, thinking of all the things that go wrong, they will.
What if I embarrass myself, or what if people laugh at me, or I say something stupid, or I stutter, or
I
who gives a fuck?
No, I tell you what you know, it took me a lot in age and in all this wisdom or whatever, but it's so freeing not to give a fuck about what people think so much. It's like it's like I got over this. I'm not a young, handsome 25-year-old guy anymore. And it will never was really, but it's like if you worry about how I look and how I sound or whatever, it's crippling in a way. It's like I let go. I don't
People's
care.
perceptions, man. I know so many really talented musicians that are inhibited by what they think people will perceive them as, whether that's a sellout or a this or a that. And
in reality, is people don't really think about themselves more than anything else, and they don't really care.
Well, it's funny because I have, like, with music, I have so many friends that, like, oh yeah, they use a clap track, or they use this, or they're not a real musician because they made all this money, or they sold out, or it's like, if you listen to the song and it makes you feel pleasant, then it's a good song.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to the song and it makes you, and you don't enjoy it, or it's not that pleasing to you, then it's not a good song for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people get so caught up on, oh, that guy, when he shoots his podcast, he does this, or he says that, or, he uses these colors or this system or these mics, and it's not professional enough for me to listen to. And You just got to do it, like you said, and make adjustments as you go, and try to be as
learn and
passionate about it, and try to put out the best product that you can over time as you learn.
embrace the learning curve and embrace mistakes, because that's actually, I used to say this as a teacher, if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn anything, because you've already known it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like only learning happens with mistakes, and it's a human nature, don't like to fail. Probably good reasons for that, but when you embrace it, it's part of the process. It makes things a little bit easier.
I agree.
And it's the person who, and I believe this too, kind of like a societal thing is when society sees someone get knocked down and stand back up on their own, the society will help that person.
Yeah.
It just seems to, like, when you get knocked down, you just got to get back up. Don't complain, don't whine. Life's not fair, but could be wrong about that, but when you get knocked down and you get back up, that's a good thing. And it tends to pay off.
I think Chris Rock is one of my favorite comedians. He had that line that he said about, he's like, when my car used to break down, I would get out of my car and I'd stick my thumb out. Nobody'd stop. But as soon as I started turning around and pushing my own car, people stop and they help me push, because they want to see that investment on your part too. It's hard to care about someone that doesn't care about themselves, or it's hard to invest in someone that's not willing to invest in themselves.
There's something emotional about, and not them telling you, but you seeing it. Like, that person just got screwed over. They got knocked down, literally knocked down, and they're trying to get themselves up. You want to go help that person.
Yeah.
And I think in general, society will tend to do that. But don't say, I've got knocked down, I need help. That doesn't seem to work as well.
It seems like we hate that as a society. We hate the perceived whiner, right? We hate the person that's,
Well, yeah, and it just tends not to work out for them. But I think when we see
Billy cheated it, and it's, oh God, okay.
It doesn't always get noticed, of course, but I think when it does, it helps.
Yeah.
So and you're going to get back up. When you get knocked down 8 times, you got to stand up 7.
Yeah.
I mean 9.
Yeah.
9.
If you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough.
There's 3 kinds of math teachers: the kind that can count, the kind that can't count.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard me say that a million times.
That was yeah.
I love that one. Anyways, want to wrap this up, or what do you want to?
Yeah, let's call it a day for now, man. I'd love for you to come back on. You're welcome anytime. Anytime you got stuff going on, you want to come on or just to shoot the shit, man. This was a great time, and I really appreciate you coming on.
I know you let me talk some crazy wild ideas, and maybe it'll catch on. I do think there is something to that energy and currency thing. I really do, because
I like how you keep coming back to. I can tell you it's something you thought quite a bit about.
And it's just so fundamental to us. Even not just like when I say we only move things, people think I'm nuts. What do you mean we only move things? Well, you thought about it a little bit and you came across it pretty quick, that
on the very base level
where you don't move, or
if you're not moving, you're not doing much at all.
And you need energy, and that's what nature gave us, or God gave us, is energy. Gave it to us.
Yeah.
Just recently we monetized it, and that's not, but that's what's given to us, and it should be ours. Yeah. That's what was given to us.
It's funny. It should be ours. The closest one that we can use, right? But his only begotten son, his son.
How about that?
Parallel.
Wow.
We'll end it on that.
Deep.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you.